Order. I don't even have the what's the date? August 11th, Commission workshop, budget workshop. Roll call, please.
Mayor Coviello?
Here.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Watts? Here. Commissioner Ross?
Here.
And Commissioner Jonas?
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. So we will get started. I'm sorry. Can I have an agenda?
Absolutely.
Yes. That's. I don't have an agenda, so I'm lost.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry. Okay. If everyone would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, sorry about that. All right, we'll start the night with public comments. Anyone wishing to speak, state your name and address. That's a good question. Do we have a mic? All right. It's for me? Oh. Is this homework? Janie, how are you?
Janie Anderson, 11th Place, looking at 19th Street. I know you guys are dealing with code tonight, but I wanted to express my comments as you begin the process. Past emissions not only didn't support stringent code, they effectively made us essentially things for clause. And that, I've always felt, really contributed to the extreme downside that we took a few years ago. And so I was really encouraged, Mayor, when you put forward to have that second code officer, that was a really step in the right direction, and a little disappointed that it's not in the preliminary budget. I hope you guys will reconsider. I honestly feel that there's very little else you can find that does as much, not just for property lines, but ultimately for quality of life as just code enforcement. Now, there may be all kinds of good things about master plans, but at the end of the day, a master plan is an expensive piece of paper without the revenue. Whereas code, I really believe, gives you a far more immediate return. There's simply too much to be done here for just one person. Probably most of you have ridden around with the code officer, and certainly when you were campaigning, you were not going door to door to see our issues. And another pair of boots on the ground brings that many more homes into compliance, gets the lien process moving quicker, all of which generates revenue that we need to do all the things that we all want. There's more documentation, there's more follow-up, the whole process is smoother and quicker, bringing in the kind of revenues that are going to be crucial to doing all the different things that each of you points forward. So we can't get complacent because our property values went up 10% this year. I'm sure you guys all read the same things I do. There is a prediction for a downturn coming. And moving forward with code and getting more properties into compliance, I think will really position us better to face the next downturn.
Okay, thank you, Janie. Anyone else? Gary?
Derek Huell, 11th Street. Just rewind what Janie said, because I agree with everything she said, and I was going to say some of the same. But I do want to say I appreciate the fact that we're seeing a lot more come to code compliance, and I really do appreciate that. It's picked up quite a bit, so I think there is an effort, but it seems that it's a very focused, limited agenda in terms of what it's being looked at, and we're really not on top of things. There's so much more out there. And so without being redundant, I fully support having another code compliance officer. I think we really need it. It is the kind of thing that not only improves the home values, it maintains the home values. As we can see in the past downturn, those communities that had were more appealing, were better maintained, were the ones that held their values more so than others that were run down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Barbara Kuehl, 111th Street. I agree with Janie and Gary about the code. Some other things I'd like to add is one thing that I think really needs to be worked on, and I don't know if this is, it's probably a case of not having the funding, is the Muni Code. Last night at the code compliance hearing, Steve Bernard was looking for something in our code. We all knew it was there someplace, but no one was able to find it. And we need codes that our residents can go to if they want to build something, if they want to do something, and find it easily. It should all be out there. So if it takes more money, then I'd like you to fund that. Also last night, I completely support getting another code compliance officer, but we had a situation where a homeowner had accrued, I think, $65,000 in fines over 10, 15 years. He sold his house in January, and no one had to pay the fines because there were no liens placed on this property. And the new owner found out by accident when they came to the office that there was over $60,000 on this new house, which it would have given me a heart attack. And the code officer that I feel we need is someone that's also going to be able to work on getting our records in order. For as many years as I've been coming to these meetings, we've all been saying that through commission after commission. And one of the things that seems to happen in the village, not just now, but it goes back as long as I can remember, even when a lien is placed or a fine is placed and it starts accruing, that's the last time the village ever contacts these people. We need to put in some method that on a semi-annual, quarterly, yearly basis, every homeowner that owes anything to the village gets a notice. Because people will, you had somebody here the other day at the commission meeting that claimed they had never received any information. Do you know how much money is sitting out there? The $65,000 we lost would have paid for a code enforcement officer. So I hope you really, looking at whatever's on the budget tonight for recreation, think in terms of making sure that the code is funded. Just briefly with the recreation center, something that a request from a couple of administrations ago with Candido, there's a dirt path between the handball court, this building. I noticed there was something in the budget about repairing a sidewalk. If we do any of that, we should really try to get the money to install a sidewalk so that area is clean. Even at the tot lot, Candido was working with Park and Parkways, trying to get a sidewalk as you enter the tot lot. Right now you enter to mulch. So if you're going to do it, maybe you can do something together. Okay, I won't take any more time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Anyone else?
Jared Susi, 1030 Northeast 120th Street. You guys are doing a great job, but notice that there's a bunch of overages last time I looked at this. But that just needs to be addressed somewhere, and someone needs to take a look at it and see why it's going over. Recently, we had a new neighbor move in on our block, and she went through a certificate of reoccupancy, and we issued it. Permits were pulled on the house. That it was a flip job, and the rains came last night, and all these issues arose. So I think that we should look into possibly working out a better deal with the inspectors, or because at this moment it could be an issue over there. So I can explain further in detail, like a driveway was poured without a permit being pulled. I could tell because I remember that there was no driveway there. It was concrete pads and someone poured asphalt over it. That in turn caused water to flood her house. Brand new neighbor, she just bought the house, and ran into an issue there. So want to look out for the new people in our neighborhood, for the people that are around here, and might have to do something with a little different with the building department. Don't know the answer to that, what to do yet, but something to look into. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Anyone else? Okay. I just want to touch on what you said, Barbara. I agree with the points you made, with just a couple of clarifications. I think that everything is on Muni Code currently. I think what you're alluding to is the shutters, the hurricane shutters.
Yeah, I mean, when I go
Let me finish though. So everything that I understand, our code is current, but I think what someone was looking for last night was the ability to find the code section that prevented hurricane shutters from being put on even when there's not a storm. And to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but I don't think we have a section in our code that specifically limits it to 24 hours before a storm or 24 hours after. I'm certain that we don't, but.
We do.
Yeah, that's it. I remember talking
None
about
of
that.
the
Okay.
new ordinances that you've approved are in Muni Code.
Yes, they
It
are.
hasn't.
Okay, all right, well, we think they're on, but we'll resolve that. And the second thing is there's one, I agree that we need to record liens, and I think we're doing a better job of getting on that because it wasn't done for years. But, so when it comes to a certain point, especially when the dollar amount's so high, we should record a lien automatically. But that doesn't mean that someone that buys a house is off the hook for violations that have not yet been recorded. Violations run with the land. And so the fact, typically when you buy a house, you ask the town or the city for what's called the municipal lien search, which gives you open building permits, code violations that may not even be recorded yet, that won't come up in a title search, but you're still obligated to pay those violations. So the fact that the board settled that case is fine, but they weren't, the city had a right to collect that money. So I just want to clarify that.
But you get to a point
Mayor?
like that.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I also want to address, because we also received a couple emails about this today. In the last 6 to 8 months, the staff has picked up 128 cold case files dating back to 2008, 2009, and have either closed out the cases by having the folks come into compliance, or filed liens or sent the intent to lien. So we are moving in the right direction. Going forward, everything is on board, the systems are in place, the staff is educated about what to do. But 128 files that were left by previous administrations and previous staff and previous commissions were picked up and moved forward. And we've been communicating with the commission about that all along.
Okay, wonderful.
Mayor?
Yes.
And I have to agree with the manager. I can see really has been a step up as far as recording liens. But going back in our history, there are so many ones out there that the records, maybe the lien has been placed and whatever has happened to the records, I don't know. I mean, these things pop up every so often, and it would behoove us to go ahead and start looking for some of these things and sending out notices to the homeowner that some of these existed. Because like the last commission meeting, that particular lien dated way back, and they claim they never received it. Of course, anybody gets a bill, I've never received a bill yet. I can understand that part. But at least to go ahead and have a system in place where we can go ahead and start sending out stuff from time to time, reminding people. And I'm sure if we start really going back on some of our ancient records, we're going to be surprised what's there as far as some liens. One of the other things, going what Barbara mentioned about the worn areas out in the field, where people are walking. I've read articles a ways back that some commercial developers, what they do, especially if they got like businesses and they happen to have parallel buildings, etc., they put in a kind of a grass and they wait and see where the worn areas are, and that's where they actually put the walkways. And we could be looking at it the same thing. where the worn areas where you're getting a lot of people walking, that's a good area to go ahead and be putting in a permanent walkway. So I don't hold it as, we only put, just, we can design where walkways ought to be. That doesn't necessarily mean that's where people are going to be walking.
Okay, thank you. Gary, if you want to step up, you wanted to say something, but before you do that, I just want, Mr. City Attorney, could you just, because I know this comes up a lot and there's a lot of confusion, could you just clarify what I said, though, that, I mean, you have liens, and the village should record liens at a certain point, but unrecorded violations that have accruing fines run with the land, and you're responsible when you purchase a house to find out if there are such violations that exist, correct?
Right, if the lien has not, first of all, the violation runs with the land, even if it's foreclosed, the violation's still there.
Right.
The fine goes away, even on the foreclosure, but the
Foreclosure,
violation never
but if
goes
you
away.
just purchase a home,
If you just purchase a home and it's not been in any way addressed, then that position of cities has always been, and there's a little bit of controversy with that, but that the lien, the fine still stands, and the reason
Correct.
exactly is because we talk to title companies, they know they have to, and we get them all the time. Is there any open permits on this, anything we need to know about this property? If
Right.
you don't do that, then really, your remedy should be with your title company or your attorney as part of the closing.
right, okay, thank you.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is, as you well know, Mayor, having been the former chair of the Code Compliance Board, if you have a lien, you're in a much better position
Absolutely.
than if you don't. And we're negotiating against the gamble that somebody is simply going to go to court and get it dismissed. Such was the case where the accrued fines were $173,000 on one of the cases that we adjudicated last night, and we settled for $45,000. That house was underwater by, it was a $513,000 mortgage, I believe. They said the house was worth $150,000. We felt it was more like $220,000. But if we push that much further, there's no question they'd go to court and get it dismissed. So you got to make a judgment call, and it's really important that we're in a much better bargaining position by having the liens, and I hope we are in fact cleaning it up. Now, I understand too, we have a new process where the liens can be recorded for $30. Is that true? It's a very simple, efficient process.
Electronically, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they record them electronically.
And is it $30? I mean, it's very
It's the
inexpensive.
Miami-Dade County recording fee of $10 first page, $8 second page, and the company to record it online is $2.
And they make a profit at $2? Because I understood before it was quite expensive for us to do it, and that's one of the reasons these liens weren't
Now,
recorded.
if you remember, a couple of months ago, we passed the contract with Simplifile.
Yeah, well, I remember, that's what I meant.
And
I
that's who
recall
Harvey
that.
Rubin has asked us
Okay.
to go through.
But I agree, we're in a better position if we do record the liens. I agree 100%.
Yeah. All right, that's all.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on to discussion of the budget.
Mayor?
Madam, yes.
Just before we start to discuss the budget, at the last regular commission meeting, consensus said that we were going to go ahead and see about refinancing our outstanding loan to include whatever monies that were short for the log cabin renovation. And I was, I don't see it on the agenda. I was wondering if anything's been done on that.
Well, the mayor and I discussed, and it's part of the capital improvement plan discussion.
So we will discuss.
I didn't, on the capital improvement, because on the electronic version that I had on the draft budget, didn't show anything about the
But I
capital.
sent it to you separately. Remember the email yesterday?
You just went
I sent
past it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I saw that, but I didn't
Yeah.
see anything saying about the
Yeah.
refinancing loan
It's
on
also
it.
on the top of page 1 of the budget under appropriations, so at whatever point the mayor wants to take up the discussion.
This is what I have.
Right, it's on appropriations, the
Right, but you have the
135
whole-
is the
the full
first
budget.
item on the
Yeah.
line items.
Is
right?
there an extra copy of the budget out there
Yep, there's plenty
Yeah.
out
for
there.
Commissioner Anderson?
Can I make a comment in response to some of the
Sure.
code concerns that were expressed? And although that's not one of the departments we're discussing today, but my review
Thank you.
of that department tells me that we've put in additional, we're
last
putting,
page.
setting aside additional monies for support for code. I think it was $25,000. And, that may be a way to boost up code, but also afford the flexibility to put in the assistance in the areas that you need it, rather than taking on the burden of an entire extra employee.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we will have that discussion as part of the appropriations. Okay, Madam Manager?
Thank you. So tonight is our first budget workshop, and we will be having another one next week. Tonight's topics are revenues, village commission, administration, general government, finance, planning, parks and recreation, building, and capital improvements. As a reminder, the draft budget that you have in front of you is used as a guide to help us set the millage rate. We somewhat do it, in my opinion, a little backwards here, where we set the millage rate and then we go through the draft budget. But as staff, we take feedback from the commission. If you recall, both at the June 2nd and July 7th commission meetings, we solicited feedback from the commission on their goals and objectives. And we use that as well as our own departmental goals and objectives, as well as our contractual obligations and other items that we know are important to the process, and crafted a budget that was presented for the setting of the millage rate. This is our opportunity to go through the line items in this budget to make sure that this fits the work plan and the policy decisions that both the administration and the commission would like to see in the next year. The mayor and I discussed the format for tonight, and we are going to go department by department and pretty much highlight all of the line items that are of interest to the commission and answer any questions that we can. Maria will be keeping a parking lot on a piece of paper of any issues that there's consensus perhaps to move or reduce or eliminate some funds or add to funds. And then at the end of the meeting, what we will do is go over that parking list so we have a full picture of all of those items before we proceed.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're not covering all that's on the agenda, A through I.
Correct, we are.
We are.
Next week is Public Works, Police, CITT, Roads, and Code.
Okay. All right, so why don't you do a general introduction to each item, and then we can just have questions and discussions.
Okay, let's start with revenue, which is in the back of your packet. Revenue tends to fall into a couple categories. That includes the revenue that we receive both from the state income as well as county income, and that's generally your franchise fees, your utility tax, your ad valorem taxes, those type of items. Then there's the fees for service, everything from building department to home occupation fees, landlord permits, use of the recreation center or programming here at the recreation center. And then finally, there's fees that come from other programs such as code compliance fines, newsletter advertising, lien search and copies. Some of these are reimbursable. So if we'd like to start at the beginning of the revenue, I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up. If you recall, this budget is based on a millage rate of 9.7, based on the taxable value that we received from the property appraiser on July 1st, which was $160 million, and we estimated at a 95% return. Mayor?
I have a question.
Sure.
On that one line item, the $160 million is the number given to us by the county as the preliminary taxable value on July 1st. And as you know, the county takes a percentage for collecting that tax. And then we're supposed to budget for 95% of the collection, I guess. So is there a place in the budget where the county's fee is taken into account?
I'll have to look into that one and come back with that answer.
Okay. It may be that it's on the expense
Yeah.
side and the general
Yeah.
government, but I couldn't put my finger on it quickly.
Looks like in the very first item, it says 95% of the 160 million.
Right, you're supposed to budget 95%
Correct.
of your receipts.
Right.
But before we even get the money, the county takes a percentage. That 5% is in addition to what the
They
county
take a
takes.
collection percentage, yeah,
More than the 5, okay.
yeah.
So is that dollar amount, that 1,474,664, is that what we expect to actually receive?
That's the 95%, yes.
But I mean, that's what we expect to receive because of the part that the county is going to be subtracting.
We'll have to look at the fee. We'll have to get back to you on the fee.
Okay.
I mean, if you compare it to what was received last year, the 1.3 was what was received last year?
There was what was projected.
What was projected, okay. And then,
Yeah.
This number that's in here may include some garbage numbers as well. There's some journal entries that we're still trying to sort out, and this is, we're sharing with you the same budget that we used at the setting of the trim, the tentative millage rate, and we have not made adjustments to this as more information has come to us.
So you recall at our
Right.
regular commission meeting, I had a question about the ad valorem taxes and the amounts that seem to have been received lag what we had received last year. So there's, I guess, the monies are posted sort of in bulk, and either the county gives an accounting or finance has to figure out what pocket that money belongs in, whether it's ad valorem or sanitation funds.
okay, other questions on revenues? Anybody?
We're projecting an
Yeah.
increase on some building permits because of the amount of homes that are for sale, as well as the quality of some of those properties that are either for sale or we know that are getting ready to come on the market through the foreclosure process. So we continue to see to expect another healthy year in the building department next year.
And I was noticing there's a number of them that I think you're being very conservative, rightly so, that's showing less of a revenue than what was budgeted for the previous year. And basing it, I'm sure you're basing it on is what we received so far and what you think we're going to be receiving.
On the code compliance fines, you notice that it's gone from estimated 24,000 last year to 53,000 this year?
Yes.
Is that because of your efforts in trying to recoup?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And don't forget, not all of them go to the board. Some people just come in and pay those fines once they get the intent to lien letter. If they have a 500 or something bill, they just come in and pay it. So not all of them are big, and not all of them go for reductions.
That's a good thing to point out to us, because I think that some of these things are transparent to us, and because they don't come before a board or we don't see minutes about it, there is progress being made on these code collections that we don't see.
Okay, anything
But
else?
you'll see
on-
them in the budget.
Yeah, I have a question on the, and we talked about the forestry grant, that last year we had $5,000 that the village matched, and I'm not sure that we even budgeted, I'm not sure that we budgeted for it.
No.
Yeah, under tree trimming and public works, I believe.
And in the current budget, I'm not sure that we budgeted for, in the proposed budget, it's not showing any amount at all. And I know the time has passed to submit
Correct.
that application. I want to make sure that going forward, we do commit for the forestry grant, because it's not just the $5,000 that we get from the state for it. It sort of forces us to write that check or make allowance for that money. And now all of a sudden we have a pool of $10,000 that we could use for trees and medians. And without having that forced measure, I'm afraid that we're not going to set aside the money. And we need to put as much money as we can into protecting our medians and our trees. I know we had we're managing a lot of grants and a lot of things this year and being displaced from offices and all that. It certainly takes a toll on everything that we do. But I just want to make sure that we continue regularly applying for those forestry grants.
Okay. Anything else?
Can I
No.
talk a little bit about the code issue? I mean, it's not strictly about
Yeah, go ahead.
expenses. Yeah. I have to say, it's kind of frustrating that some of the people who find more money that they'd like to spend, whether it's on a second code officer or anything else, do not come forward and encourage the commission to charge the highest tax rate it can. They didn't do that last week, but they still come forward and they say, well, we'd like you to spend more money on this and that. It sort of hog-ties the system when that happens. But having said that, there are sort of two things I wanted to talk about with respect to code. One of them is that I really do think that the current administration is doing really an amazing job that nobody has been careful to do before. And I'm talking about Heidi, Krishna, and Maria, at least in terms of getting very serious about applying these code balances and beginning to create the liens on properties. It's the kind of thing that should have been done a long time ago, and it wasn't, and that's really too bad, but it's being done now, and that's great. The other thing is, having spent a little time with Reggie, I'm not sure exactly what we would do with a second code officer. Reggie is doing an amazing job himself. He's very, very active in the community. He seems to know everybody, every property, all their code problems, all their functional and family problems that prevent them from doing what they should do. He gives them notices, he sweet talks them, and I don't know what else we could do to get these people to pay what they're supposed to pay. And when it's a matter of liens or something, there's nothing we can do then either except to wait for the property to turn over. I mean, clearly the Code Compliance Board, has the discretion to be as heavy-handed as they want to be when this stuff comes to them. But short of that, I really think we're doing pretty much as good a job as we could possibly be doing in terms of code. The last thing I wanted to say, and again, I regret that we have hogtied ourselves in terms of the budget, but when we talk about wishing that people would keep their properties up and make them look nice because it's a credit to the neighborhood, what exactly motivates them to do it unless they're internally motivated? And I still say, as I have said all along, that when we take the public spaces seriously, like the medians, then people will kind of pick that up and they'll follow it in their own private properties as well. And we just simply need to set aside the money, we need to collect it, we need to set it aside, and we need to use it to improve the medians and all the other public spaces, and people will get the idea.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the code is the next week, right?
Yes, sir.
But I will say that I agree with you in that I've ridden around with Reggie probably 3 times, and he definitely, the process takes time, and you don't see results immediately oftentimes, but he knew every house I would point to, he knew the status of that case,
Yeah.
and so I agree, he's doing a great job, but I do think that having another person help him will only help us do it quicker and cite,
I don't know that that's true.
I think so. I mean, but it would be quicker follow-up. But we'll have the discussion next week on code.
Right.
I have a question on revenue with that landlord permit fee. I may be getting it wrong, but I thought that it was something that would sunset.
It doesn't, the ordinance, as I recall,
No.
John, it doesn't sunset. What it says is if, as a landlord, once you pay for 3 consecutive years, you don't have to pay anymore.
Rewards the compliance.
Without any violations.
You still need your permit, but you don't have to pay for your permit.
Right.
And I think it's 3 years, not.
I think it's
But there
3
is a consistency, and if you haven't had violations, then you don't have to actually pay the fee.
How difficult is that to manage?
An Excel spreadsheet is what I use.
It's more the time of the follow-up, finding the time for the follow-up.
Right.
We have accurate records, but it's just, It's on the list of the next couple weeks to send out letters for that,
For the people
home
who are not paid.
occupation, and what was the other we talked about today? Something,
Home occupation, the special services pickups.
special services.
Or-
pickup.
So there's an expenditure of resources to, whether or not they pay for the permit, there's an expenditure of resources to manage that process. And maybe we should reconsider that waiver.
Exactly.
Okay.
I just had one question on, Heidi, I wonder if you could explain the rationale of the electric franchise fees and it going up?
Those numbers come directly from the state. So the state has been slow in releasing their numbers, so when we put this together, we were doing an estimate. But that number, we don't, it's a statewide share. It's not based on anything we do, a consumption here. It's a statewide share, no different than the half-cent sales tax. And that the state tells us, they release forms online, it's public record, anyone can see it, of what the projected revenue for any town is.
All right, so is everyone ready to move on to Village Commission?
Mhm.
Do
Okay.
you want to start at the top at appropriations or save that for capital improvement?
Yeah, let's save that for capital improvements.
Okay. The Village Commission budget is pretty straightforward and standard. It pretty much mirrors last year's budget. I know that there's a low number as far as expenses under education and training, and it's just a booking issue. When certain commissioners go to sign up for events, we use our credit card, and it's just a matter of fixing that booking, where Claude's still getting caught up on some of the bank statement reconciliations. But it's, like I said, the actual expenditures are they're pretty much the same as last year. And we just went ahead with the assumption that it would be $500 per commissioner. That was the consensus that you had last year, as opposed to there being just a pot that everyone drew from. And we seem to have found that it worked with each of you this year. It made it easier, actually, for us to communicate with you and get things processed for you.
All right, any comments? None? Okay.
My continuing comment is, I think that we should do away with commission salaries, and we should arrange some sort of expense reimbursement. That way, we know the money that's being spent by the commission is spent for the community and in pursuing their duties as commissioner. It's not a lot of money, but I would be willing to kick my money back and use it for other things, if we're not going to use it for fulfilling our duties.
Okay.
I agree. The compensation is meaningless with respect to the time and dedication that we give. And this really needs to be understood to be an honorary position that doesn't get compensated.
Okay. Other thoughts? Commissioner Watts?
And I disagree too, and plus there's things coming up. I mean, it's like you're going to the League of Cities, you know, that is a very, very large expense, which is covered in this budget. Also too, I believe it's in October, the League of Cities down here has the best practices conference. And it behooves the majority of the commission to at least go.
But
to that.
that's, the way I understand what you're saying is that the village would cover expenses such as those
Right.
if you actually go, as
After-
opposed to just making a blanket payment.
Right. Correct. Correct.
So you would be comfortable as long as the village reimbursed you for those expenses and the salary was eliminated?
No, I think what we have, it's working very well. It's been working very well for a lot of years. I like to keep it like it is.
Okay. Commissioner Watts?
I think that we're not Golden Beach. We are not a community of people who all make a really great amount of money. And so I think that a salary is warranted. And as Commissioner Anderson said, there are certain things such as, I'm on the Environmental and Energy and Natural Resources Committee that meets in Orlando 3 or 4 times a year. And so it's about $150 or $250 each time I go up to that to those meetings. So I think
That's what
that's.
Rox's proposal is
And
intended
the
to pay
thing
for.
is that my life, I could not do all of this reimbursement. I'm still up to my neck with reimbursements from trips, giving conference papers at my university, saving all those little pieces of papers, doing all that kind of stuff. I don't have a secretary. I mean, it just adds, it would make this job a complete and utter burden. So that's why I'm opposed to it.
And I agree, and I think it also, too, would be burden our financial staff.
Bob, I would just like to point out that it wouldn't be exactly fair to say it's worked well for years. The commission salary used to be much higher than it is. It's been lowered twice, I think, in the 10 years that I've been here. So there's some understanding that this job doesn't need to be paid what it used to be paid. And Rox is only suggesting, and I agree with her, that maybe it doesn't need to be paid anything. Maybe it's enough to cover expenses.
Well, that may be very true to some commissioners.
I'm wondering, though, if we went the format that you're suggesting, if actually it would end up costing the village more money, because, you know, the commissioners are $2,000, so if each commissioner went to the League of Cities plus multiple other conferences, maybe it would end up being more.
I think we would save
Have to
on
have a
the-
cap.
We would save on the salary burden that's paid, and the $12,000, I mean, we'd have to have a cap of $12,000, plus whatever we have for education, would go purely for those reimbursements and expenses, as
Mhm.
opposed to now some of it goes to different taxing agencies.
I think the village already reimburses for some of those expenses,
We do.
even with the salary.
We do, yeah.
But they don't reimburse for, let's say, the normal meetings, what it costs to get from point A to point B by fuel, depreciation of a vehicle,
You mean for each
Tolls.
of our houses to this building?
anything. Go into any of the meetings. I mean, yeah, we can go ahead and start having a paper trail that it will overwhelm our finance department, and I don't think it's worth it.
I've proposed it several times, I just feel obligated
Yeah.
to stick with it, because
No, you know, to be
Second.
honest with you, I tend to agree. You know, and I would be comfortable giving up my salary and just doing it on a reimbursement basis.
I think it would discourage people from running for office.
Mhm.
You really do?
Yes.
Yes.
As one of my friends used to say, what do you do if you run for office and you don't get elected? You were counting on that money? What happens if you don't get it? And you had to run
On
for
occasion,
office.
I need that money to have my house cleaned because I have to study the budget. All right? I don't have pay someone to do my yard. All of this kind of stuff takes time, okay? And if some of my salary has to go on occasion to getting some help in so that my yard is not a complete mess and my house is not a complete mess, I think it's worth it. You can, you can pull at both ends and not have time to do anything. Maybe if you're semi-retired, that's fine. But if you have a full-time position and you've got a house to take care of, I'm sorry. I think if you need the time to do this and want to do a good job, I think it's worth remuneration.
Is this just a discussion, or is this something we're voting on?
It's a workshop, there's no voting.
Correct.
But if there's consensus,
Take certain action.
right.
But it can stay in the budget now, and then at the hearings, we could vote on it to eliminate it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Maria can put it on the parking lot. And
Okay, well, why don't we put it down as one of those issues?
And I think if there's some other action we would have to take in addition to,
Is it in the code? The sal-
You would change, you have to change the code, and you may want, from what, if you want to see what savings there are, that may be something that could be looked at.
Okay, all right, so let's put that on the list. Anything else on Village Commission? I think the rest is sort of standard, anything? Last call? Okay. Why don't we move on to administration?
This also is pretty much a mirror image of last year. Some things I'd like to point out. I did receive some questions on why our expenses in education and training are so low. My professional conference is in September. I'm still trying to figure out if it's something I'm able to do. I'm going to the League of Cities this week, so there's still some expenses that are coming in on that budget item. So that budget item is pretty accurate. The clerk goes to the annual clerks conference, and I think there's a wealth of information she brings back from that. So I highly support that staying at that level. And I do feel a professional responsibility to point out that I do have an increase. It's per my contract that is included in this department's budget.
Okay. Wasn't there, didn't we address the health insurance, and the health insurance was supposed to be reduced, I thought? Didn't we?
No, there was a slight increase to it, but it was better benefits overall. But what you're seeing as the actual increase here is that we're anticipating a 15% on that very small, slight increase, because our renewal is in June, and we don't know what it's going to be like next
Okay.
year. We also have had, as we go through the budget, I just want to point it out because it's in various departments, including police, which we'll do next week, the option for employees to opt out of the insurance program, and they receive $1,500 stipend back for opting out. We've had 2 employees opt out of the program. So as you go through the different departments, it's reflected
Is
there.
that stipend $1 per dollar, or? In other words, if they opt out, what's
They
the
get
average cost?
$1,500
What's that?
across, $1,500. If you choose not to take our health insurance as an employee, we don't have to, we're not paying your premium.
But I'm saying, what is that?
Oh,
that
I'm
average?
sorry, I don't have those numbers in front of me,
I mean,
Mayor.
Is it,
No, it's a,
It's
it's a major savings. I want to say it's like,
$7,500
I was going to
a
say,
year.
it's about a $6,000,
Okay.
$6,500 savings for us.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're not budgeting for a person, we're budgeting for a position, so I think you still have to account for that in the budget, that's part of your salary. your
We
burden.
would, if that employee was to leave, we would have to adjust for that.
So in the budget itself, those dollars are budgeted for the health insurance as if nobody is opting out?
No, it's budgeted as is.
With
We
the
would,
opt-out.
with the opt-out.
With the opt-out, so if
Yeah.
that employee leaves and another one comes in, there'd be a budget shortfall then on that line.
We would have to
item.
make an adjustment for it.
Okay.
Wait, say that again? The number on our draft budget,
Includes at the real-time as is with the opt-out. So, and if,
employee C opted out, so their insurance is reflected at the full rate or at the lower rate?
at the lower rate, at the 1,500,
Then we could get caught, we'll be caught short.
we could be.
Wow. I'd rather see it budgeted the other way because,
I'm sorry, so I was looking, so say it again?
so employee C in whatever department has opted out, and the budget now reflects that their insurance cost is $1,500 as opposed to the full $7,500. So if that employee were to resign and a new employee hired, we don't have enough in that line to cover the new employee's insurance.
The way, as a person who sees the budget in and out every day and the personnel issues, typically you don't fill a position the day someone resigns. So there's always salary savings. I mean, there's savings in the budget and through the salary and the benefits generally during that 1 week or 2 week period before you're hiring someone. I'm not as concerned about that.
Was the budget that we're working with now, in other words, not this proposed budget, but the budget that we're under now, was it set up the same way?
We didn't consider the opt-out at the time because we didn't have the insurance information at the time. So right now, it's fully budgeted for.
Okay.
That was instituted this year.
Yes, it was instituted
Roxy,
in June.
Are you saying we should budget this as if nobody
Correct.
opts out?
Right.
And right now, you're budgeting for 2 opt-outs?
2 opt-outs, but like I said, if they leave, there's also their salary
understood.
savings for a little while.
So, but the impact on the budget is like
12,000.
12,000.
12,000, and there's so many, when we budget too, you know, then there's employee payouts sometimes that we have to we can never accurately capture every what if, so we try to be at least accurate in what we're doing.
I'm comfortable with the explanation as long as it doesn't get too many people with the opt-out. But with 2 out of all of our employees, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
What I
I
was,
assume these, I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
So I'm assuming that these are only non-union employees, because if they're union, you have to give them the insurance. They're able to opt out even if they're union?
They did. They did. We
And
did
their
have
contract
the-
allows for that?
I don't know who they are.
No, police. I know we had a conversation
Only
about
one-
it, but,
Only one is PDA.
right. I
I don't
remember
want
we had
that
a
to come back and
conversation.
bite
I
us.
think it's we have to offer, not provide, if I remember
Probably just,
the PBA language.
All right, well, we can check that.
But they chose to.
So they had a
Right,
family
but if
member
we're,
who got family
could be
coverage.
perceived as interfering with their bargain.
Right, but I know we spoke about it at the time.
All right, so let's write that down, Maria, on the.
Yeah, we'll
list of
follow up on
issues.
that, yeah.
And again, what is the amount per employee for these 2 that we'd have to come up with if one of them resigned or something?
13.
6,000 each,
6,000 apiece?
And again, depending on what time of year.
depending on what time of the year, exactly.
Right. So now, under this department, we're dealing with the first of our employees who does not have a contract or is not under a collective bargaining agreement.
Correct. And that's why I
And-
pointed out the disparity.
And so there's approximately 1/3 of all of our village employees that don't fall under a contract or a union agreement. And the way the budget is set up right now, that 1/3 of our employees are not budgeted to receive any kind of a pay increase.
Commissioner Ross, my numbers actually are, I have 11 employees receiving increases and 12 not receiving increases, so it's actually half and half.
Okay?
Because there are some contract employees, but they're not receiving increases because they're tapped out for another few years.
Oh, well, but my intention was not to interfere with contract employees,
Mhm.
because that's the bargain that they chose,
Right.
right?
Right.
And they tend to be the higher paid employees
Right.
also if they're tapped out.
Right.
What I would like to see is for those employees that are not receiving a salary increase, that are not governed by a contract, to receive some compensation so that they're not, left behind, and it's probably impossible to bring them up at par with some of the higher caliber contracts, but I'd like to be able to recognize these employees for the work that they do. And so, whether it's a salary increase, or if we can't do a salary increase, at least some kind of a bonus in lieu of an increase of maybe 2%. And I think when we talked about it, Heidi, 2% was about $10,000.
Approximately $10,000. 3% is approximately $14,000, and 4% is approximately $20,000.
Right.
And I just, if I may, I would like to point out that this is something that I do agree with as well. And if you recall, in our setting of the tentative millage rate memo, it's the first thing I highlighted as not being funded. It's something that I feel strongly about as well. We have not done merit increases during the time that I've been here. And I think it's important to sit down with each employee, review their performance, and at the same time be able to compensate based on that review.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think it should be up to 4%, but merit-based, so up to 4%.
Last year, you were mentioning that some of the employees got COLA increases, am I correct?
Every employee got a COLA increase last year.
Are they getting any COLA increases this year?
There's no increases at all for employees except if they're under a contract and the
Right.
contract calls for an increase.
Then earlier this year, some of the employees had a raise or increased pay because we passed the living wage, Miami-Dade County's living rate. So to bring up some of the bottom employees up to whatever that number is for Miami-Dade
It was
counties.
2 employees, one was under contract and one is not under contract. And it was 50 cents each, I think, an hour. That was around there.
Yes.
I concur with Commissioners Ross and Anderson, but what I was wondering is what is the COLA for this year? Do we know?
The
Have
COLA,
any idea?
the COLA is based on the CPI, and right now, it's supposed to be based on the CPI for July, and right now that has not been released. It's usually about 2 or 3 months behind, so the one we looked, the last one that was posted was the April one, and it was 0.5%. I can tell you other cities that I've spoken to about this, they're actually at a 0%, they're projecting a 0% based on the CPI. And because it's going down. Yeah, however that formula is done, it's actually going down.
Right, gas is a big driver.
As I tell you, there's a lot of businesses are really not giving raises to their employees. And there's a few businesses that I know of, in fact I know of one, that are actually, for the last couple of years, have been giving furlough days to their employees. In other words, each employee has to take X amount of days off that year with no pay. So yeah, the economy is still kind of tough, and we need to really be managing and looking at our expenditures and not shortchanging ourselves. Not saying that the employees don't deserve it. It's, we've got to really take a look and be careful of what we're spending the money on, the limited funds that we have. And right now on the budget, you've presented us with a balanced budget, so anything that we add to this budget is going to have to be subtracted from someplace else.
I don't know, you can do a 3% at, what did you say, 14,000? There's money in here for holiday lighting. I think it's $6,000 or $7,000. I mean, there's employee recognitions for another $2,000 or $3,000. I think employees would rather receive a higher pay, and I think those other things we can work around. I mean, I think there's ways to find it in the budget, and the employees, we have such a tremendous team right now that we've built, and they're doing an excellent job, and I think we owe it to them to give them merit-based raises.
And to be clear, we said merit-based, so
Correct.
it's not across the board the 3%. It's up to the manager and the department heads in their review process to decide.
If we go that direction, I would rather see bonuses so we don't ratchet ourselves up on pay rates.
Do we still have anybody who's not getting a respectable base salary?
They might be making the living wage, but I would be embarrassed to pat them on the back and say they're making enough.
Well, maybe we should think about that if we have to give little or no COLA and we can scramble and find money somewhere else, either from commission salaries or anything else. We should worry
Would
about
you
those
recommend
people
a
that are
pay-
at the bottom.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Would you recommend a pay increase or a bonus in lieu of pay increase?
I would recommend a pay increase.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
goes a lot further.
The
I know
bonuses are taxed at a much higher rate, right?
it's like a 30%. I
Yeah.
recall from when I got bonuses somewhere else, and I know it hamstrings us for the future, but we have a really good team in place right now. And 3 of my strongest team players, no offense to any of my other team players, I realize as I'm saying this out loud, came on board right when those raises were the cost of living was instituted, and did not get them last year. And you would be floored to think that. And I think merit is really in order. I think from a management perspective, the ability, like I said before, to sit down and do reviews and compensate, not just give people, throw money at them, but give them feedback, encouragement, as well as areas to improve with some compensation tied to that. I think from my management style, that goes far.
I mean, if we're just asking for consensus, I would go with doing at least up to a 3% merit increase
I agree.
and find it somewhere else.
I would sooner give everybody a respectable base before I would start worrying about merit increases.
Commissioner Watts?
I worry about giving just a percentage, because then it's always the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And so if it's a 3 or 4%, if you make more money, then you're going to get a larger raise. And so I would entrust the village manager at her discretion to choose, to a certain extent, what the amount of raise per person, looking at the salary. If someone is making, only $25,000 a year, whereas everyone else is making 40 or 35 or something, that, a larger bump up, if the person was doing a good job, should go to the person with the lower salary. But I would think that we should have at least a cost of living raise. And then perhaps the village manager could use her discretion to choose.
So you're saying 0.5%
Well, at least
base, and then
a certain pot of money in which the village manager could address merit, plus essentially what we call in my area, in my field, salary compression. Some people who are hired at a very low rate, even if we keep doing a percentage at the time, that person who's making just a very low income will always be making so much lower than the people who are hired at a higher rate.
Right, but okay. There's different levels of expertise and,
Yeah.
Education.
So,
Right.
okay, if we want to structure it better, how about if we say 1% across the board to everyone, and then at the manager's discretion, up to $1,
I don't know. I think I agree with what you originally said. I think it's cleaner, up to 3%, leave it to the manager based on merit. That's my opinion.
I go with that.
But we need to be budgeting whatever dollars that's going to be transferred.
14,000.
So not to exceed 14,000 out of the total.
Right.
So we'll direct the manager to find savings somewhere else to try to accomplish this goal.
Yep. No holiday lights this year.
Can we go back to the commission?
All right. Is there a consensus on that, or Commissioner Anderson, are you?
I'm really not comfortable with that.
You on board with that, or?
I just want to see everybody get a respectable salary. The ones at the bottom need to be taken care of. I'm less concerned about the people who are already doing okay.
Commissioner Watts?
I was wondering if Commissioner Anderson would consider 2%.
What you were saying before.
It's up to 3, so it could, it doesn't, it's not necessarily 3.
Even a lower percentage I would like to see.
So Commissioner Watts, you're okay with up to 3% based on merit?
If we can find things to cut in the budget, yes.
Okay. All right, so there's consensus on that. All right,
I'm gonna
anything
cut
else?
everyone's
Yeah,
salary
I-
by 3%. I'm going to cut everyone's salary by 3%.
Okay,
I can see on our municipal code book, Unicode. Is that enough that we have in there to go ahead and bring everything up to date?
The Municode web hosting and code bank that's the fees that they charge us. The codification, the 2,000, that is enough. We are completely up to date.
We are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that from the comments that were made and discussions I've heard elsewhere, is that perhaps there were, through at other commissions, prior commissions, there were ordinances that were discussed and sent to workshop and sent to committee and discussed, and then they were never enacted.
Exactly.
So the conversations were had, people had an impression perhaps that this was included.
We
I
actually
was looking
called
for
the
the
chair.
shutter thing myself, and
We
So-
called the chair of the code review board today, and that's the
everything's up
same
to date.
agreement. Everything is up to date.
All right.
Not only that,
Not
but
only
we,
that,
we,
but-
go ahead. It's your,
I'm sorry.
it's your ball of wax. Go
But
ahead.
not only that, but any ordinances we passed this year that are not yet codified, is on Municode.
Right, it's
Right at
it's on the
beginning
title
of the
page, and it says
yes.
ordinances, that you have to click on each one.
Everything
Right.
is there,
So then there's a search feature, if you search
and there's a search.
Shutter.
Keyword, right.
keyword.
Search shutters,
Right.
windows, storm, you
All
don't
things,
find it.
everything.
We've done it so
All
many
right,
times.
so it's all there.
So I
Yeah.
just want to make sure what we're budgeting is enough to keep
It
us.
is.
It's what they
Keep us
charge
up.
us.
Yeah, I budgeted 5 last year, I codified everything, it was only 3,000. So
Okay.
I'm basing it on how many ordinances we're passing.
And just in general, looking at our resolution numbers and our ordinance numbers, they're going down compared to previous years as well.
Yeah,
I think we're just being more efficient
I
in some
think
of
that
our
at the
work.
state level, the Florida statutes, they don't get codified every year. I think they get codified every 2 years.
I think, and Municode does it, what, every 6 months or every year?
I think we do it every year.
Yeah. But
Right.
like she
But again,
said, it's
it's-
listed on the
right.
front.
Right, when you
And
open up
it's
the Village of
listed on our
Biscayne Park, it lists
webpage.
all the ordinances.
And not just at Municode, but if you go to our webpage, every
Right.
ordinance and resolution is listed on our webpage as well.
I have a question.
Yep.
Isn't, could it be that the rule about not having your hurricane shutters up, endlessly, that it's a Miami-Dade code and that we are, fall within it, fall underneath it?
Yeah, we're gonna
That's what I
resolve
thought.
that.
I mean, I know that
Our,
we have.
it's not, our code compliance officer spent a lot of time on on the phone with Miami-Dade, including supervisors last week, and there was no confirmation of that as well.
All right, well, we'll dig into it. We'll
Generally, in
resolve that.
commercial structures, it's a building code issue, but that's commercial structures. Fire exits.
Yeah,
It's
if
a
it's
fire
not,
code
we'll-
issue.
Years ago, people were cited for it, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a fire code issue, but.
Let me ask you
code
this
only
question.
regulates
We're,
commercial.
we're on administration under finance, contract services, finance, Estrada, and OS.
Oh, we were in finance already?
No, that's under administration,
It's under,
isn't it?
It's under
No.
finance.
I'm sorry.
It's under finance.
Okay,
Are we
so-
done with administration?
We are.
Is anyone else, any other comments?
No.
Okay, finance?
Can I just say one last thing? I appreciate the 3% regarding the employees and the discretion and the merit increases. Like, I just want to wrap that conversation up on the positive note. We have a great team in place, and I'd like to see this team stay intact for a very long time. And I think it's important to recognize the talent that you have on this team. You have folks with master's degrees in the area in which they're bringing their talents to the village, making $41,000, $40,000 a year. And if we want to retain these folks, we have to compensate competitively. And every little increase, I believe, helps us get closer to that. I would just hate to lose this team right now.
Next year, don't bring us a 9.7 budget.
Right.
All right,
And so, and following
it
up on
10.
I
that,
thought you meant 9.4.
following up
10.
yes.
on that, I was suggesting to the manager that we use as a management tool some kind of a value of benefits package so that employees are aware of all of the other things that the village contributes towards their benefits package. And it's not just the paycheck that you get every 2 weeks.
Right, but I
There's
assume they're
certain-
aware of that now.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the discussions about the medical insurance. Last year, when they received their COLA, I've sent them each a letter
Yeah,
congratulating
but
them.
it might be nice to
Yeah.
see it, right?
I know our firm does it. They-
Yeah, no, it's nice.
FIU does it and it irritates every single employee.
All right,
It's a waste of money and it's a slap in the face.
let's move on to finance. I have a question, the contract services, Estrada. So this is, and I think Commissioner Ross, you raised this issue during the transition on the finance department. But it almost seems like we have an excellent finance director and then we have an audit process. So it almost seems like we're doing like a double audit. No, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
I hear what you're saying, and I've had conversations with the manager about that before. I'm not at a comfort level where I would feel good without having oversight at the moment. I just heard the manager earlier today say we're behind on our bank reconciliations. I've been there before, more than once, and I don't want to see us fall into that position again. Claude, Charles, you seem like you're doing an excellent job. I need to see more of it in order to gain that level of confidence.
But I guess
But we're not behind on our bank reconciliations because of the last 2 months. We're behind on our bank reconciliations because they weren't done properly for about 6 months. That's,
I don't
I
know
just
the
want to
reason
clarify my
why.
comment, but
Well-
it's an important it's an
Okay,
important
but it's
reason
the first time
why.
I heard, it's the first time I hear that, this evening is the first time I hear that. There are sensitive issues to be, that really are not to be discussed up in the open, and we can have those conversations. We have a person serving as a finance manager. We don't have a finance director. And the level of experience from the initial hire, I always felt was not what needed to be because there wasn't sufficient municipal experience to my liking. I understand Heidi has great confidence in Claude, and that's great. I hope that they work together well as a team. But we get 1 page of a report every month, and it's a very summary report of all of our revenues and expenses. At the meeting the other day, I questioned what are the revenues. I'm waiting for an answer back, and they're trying to figure it out to get us the right number. But I do not feel comfortable, and I've been there through at least 4 finance directors. This is a position of vital importance to the village. Perhaps the arrangement, the way it's been set up with the Hinojosa firm is not exactly what we need, because I'm not getting to that place where I feel comfortable. I'm not getting any kind of report other than the 1 summary page.
From them or from our finance manager?
We get in our agenda packet.
No, but are you referring to something you get from Hinojosa?
I don't know exactly what
Okay,
the work
okay.
Hinojosa's doing,
Okay.
but when I said I want to have some oversight, this was the arrangement that we came up with.
No, understood. Okay. Well, so I think you said it, but what is your, do you have a comfort level that,
I've shared this with Commissioner Ross, that I'm very comfortable with the work that we're doing, that we have the right person in place. I think what has been uncovered is significant and is concerning to me, but the fact that this individual has uncovered this by looking at everything makes me feel even more comfortable. I shared this with Commissioner Ross as well. The kind of the pared down summary is because Mr. Charles is not comfortable with releasing some of the information when there's questions to it. One of the things, I know that you will be sitting down together on Friday and he's ready to go over this for you, but the question that you asked last week is because we found out the previous finance director was pre-booking the revenues before they came in. So that's why, and he's actually getting the numbers from the county to match up month by month of last year to see if it was a pre-booked number or if it was an actual number. There's a lot of cleanup that needs to be taken place, and I think we're in an excellent position for it. The fact that I have not heard from, and we have Christina from Estrada Hinojosa here, from Lourdes or Christina saying, you got to get rid of this guy, get rid of him, it also tells me that they're comfortable with them. They have frequent meetings and frequent communications, and they're very happy. They ask questions, and as far as I know, he has all of the answers for everything you have. I think their value to us might be over the next few months with looking at our investment strategy, our current leases, including our car leases. We spoke about this today, and finding those type of savings and being progressive with some of how we use our money. But as far as the day-to-day operations of the finance department, I'm comfortable with where we stand, and that's why I put in the 6 months. And I even spoke with Lourdes from Estrada Hinojosa early on in this, and she said, let's go on a 6-month basis and take it from there. So even she wasn't too concerned from the very beginning.
So on this budget for $15,000 for the 6 months, your plan is if everything is going fine after 6 months of this budget, you no longer will
If
need...
we have to go that far with them, yes.
But it's currently budgeted for 6 months.
That's what I'm saying, it's budgeted for 6 months, and if we need to go over 6 months, then we need to find the money some other place. Am I correct?
Right.
If we need to go over 6 months, don't take this personally, I'll be having a job description out there. If for some reason that I need Estrada Hinojosa to do oversight of our day-to-day operations, then I don't have the right person in the position.
What
Six
you're
And right-
saying-
Six
what-
months won't even take us to the presentation of our audit.
But they're 2 months in right now. We have another 2 months or 3 months, 2 months left of this fiscal year. That's a 10-month working relationship.
And then you're planning 6 months from October out?
Correct.
Because this is a different
Correct.
budget.
Correct.
What you're saying is you've benefited from reassurance about this arrangement too. And so when we're all reassured, then we can all agree that we don't need the oversight.
Correct.
So we'll all wait until we're all reassured.
Commissioner
Well,
Watson?
you brought it up, so what would your suggestion be?
No, I just, it's $15,000 in the budget, and I was just questioning the need for it if, we have someone in place that the manager is comfortable with. and-
As
and-
somebody
and-
who's
and-
been here
oh,
for several years.
Can I finish?
Go ahead.
And we have an audit system in place, so I defer to the manager on this because she works with him day to day. We don't.
I've been here for several years.
Understood.
And I've been through several finance managers.
Okay.
And every one of them said, and this is certainly not personal to you, every one of them said, oh, that last finance manager you had, he did X, Y, Z, it was horrible, it's taking me forever to clean this up, it's gonna take so much work, but we'll get it done. And then when that person left, the next person you could give them the script, it said exactly the same thing. And if our finances are not in order, we can't take a step anywhere.
Okay.
We can't borrow money from the bank, we can't, we can't really take a step anywhere.
Okay.
So it's important. It's important to me.
No, I understand it's important, and I just
And
want
we'll
to.
continue talking and see where we go.
Well, I was just wanted to make sure I can understand having that money there. I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable that is giving you enough leeway that we can get everything and you'd be comfortable of divorcing ourselves of oversight. I just don't want to, because I agree with Commissioner Ross. I think it seems like everybody we've had in finance has taken over from somebody that has been doing such a bad job according to the person that's taken over. And so I just don't want to go ahead, and we've had some major problems over a number of years with the people that we have had in our finance. I just want to make sure you're comfortable that that dollar amount is enough to go ahead and do the full transition.
Okay.
I
No,
believe it's more than enough. I don't think there's no oversight of him at this point from Estrada Hinojosa. There's conversations where he provides the monthly summary to them, and they review it. They talk about the variances. The variances is always the building department, and everything's copacetic. There's actually no oversight right now of them, so I'm not worried about the future funding of this because I'm very comfortable with where we are. I think they can bring some other value to the table, but other than that, I don't think there needs to be oversight. And I think that, and I was clear when I fought for the ability to change the structure of this position. I don't think this position has ever been structured properly with the outsource and some of the qualifications and those type of things. I think
Okay.
we've hit a good patch here.
All right, no, good. I mean, you
Okay.
both have the institutional knowledge, so I respect that, and let's
I
keep
mean,
it at 6 months.
I definitely feel leave it in the budget.
Okay.
Don't change it.
Commissioner Watts, anything on this?
Yeah, I have a question, Heidi. After perhaps in 4 months or at some point, you don't feel you really need this anyway to begin with, but you suggested that there are other things this firm can do for us with advice about our investments. How would you feel about at some point just switching over and forgetting about the oversight if you still feel confident coming to the commission and then using
There's
that money.
there's nothing to switch over. It's already in our agreement with
It's
them.
in the agreement already.
Yes, and our agreement's a month-to-month agreement.
Okay.
And they only expected to be here for about 6 months based on their initial assessment of our, once they got to know us.
Yeah. Well, I have faith in your assessment. However, I recall, as Commissioner Anderson Ross, the same sort of thing of every person we get says, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what a mess it was."
It is a mess.
You know,
Okay.
It's a mess, and it's a mess from 5 years ago still.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
yeah.
All right, no, point well taken. Claude, this discussion is no
I
reflection on you.
prepared them.
And I hope
And
you
actually,
understand that.
that 6 months takes us to starting the audit process.
Absolutely.
So the auditors will know if there were, undocumented things or ledger entries that aren't done right, or, so it'll take us to a place where we'll have a better assessment.
Okay.
And just like I opened up that review of code, I've already offered this to Commissioner Ross, and if anyone else has any concerns or would like to just sit down with Claude, and he can definitely show you some of the things he's discovered and the processes and procedures he's put in place already to correct those. I gotta tell you, been here a year and a half, 2 years, and it's the first time someone came to me and asked me where my backup is for 3 bids on something. I have them. No finance person has ever come to me and asked me to put that in, that it goes behind the check.
Before we finish up finance, I just
Yep.
wanted to touch on, I had a conversation with Heidi about the education and training, where she's got $500 set aside, and I questioned if that was gonna be enough for Claude, and she
Yeah,
Said
it's
yes.
so he
Okay.
can go to the GFOA.
All right, anything else on finance? Commissioner
No.
Anderson, anything?
No.
Commissioner Watts?
No.
No,
No?
no. There's some things that just housekeeping that'll be cut out, I think, of the final
Okay.
Yeah.
thing. We talked about this earlier.
Commissioner Jonas?
No.
All right, let's move on to planning.
Under planning, the entire budget is 10,500. That is just to meet our contractual obligations with Becker and Polikoff for the annexation. Something that we did not include in the budget that we're going to have to accommodate is about 3,500 for the annexation vote. It slipped our minds. So we can do the mail-in vote for those people who live in the annexation area. And the last quote that we have from the supervisor of elections is 3,500. So we're gonna have to come back and accommodate that. The note for the recreation center got cut off in our printing, but at the end of that, it says unfunded. That was just when we were originally drafting the budget, so that will fall off unless that's something that's put back in by the commission. And just as a reminder, the Becker and Polikoff agreement maxes out at 52,500, so that's what that 10.5 is for.
And what do we pay? So this is the remaining balance?
This is the remaining balance.
Okay. And they'll
And they said they would work
Right.
Right.
it through.
So the only thing we
Completion.
have to add, the only thing we have to add into that part is, like you said, as far as
3,500.
3,500.
All right, any other questions on planning and zoning? All right,
Plan-
The planning.
I'm sorry, planning. Okay, general government?
So general government this is where the budget gets a little different from previous years. One of the things that we have done, and you'll see this now as we go forward in other departments throughout the budget, is that we've taken some of the items such as repairs and maintenance and put them all into public works. That's the department that's responsible for it, so it's easier that it comes out of that department's budget. So we've grouped those kind of expenses. On the same token, instead of having the police department have telephone and communications for their phone line and those type of things, we put all of that under general government here. So sure, last year it was 4,000 and this year it's 17,000. It's not because we have added things under telephone and communications. It's because we have streamlined the processing. And this kind of goes back to that finance discussion, in that it also will help us in keeping our records straight and those type of journal entries and bank reconciliations. The FMIT number is based on an estimate that we received from them, and we received harder numbers this week that are pretty close to everything that we had estimated. We have some questions out to them, so we're going to leave it as is until we come back to you. We just wanted them to confirm that the number was in fact accurate. And the only other thing I would like to point out that is different, and this came from the goals of the commission, is under 519549. It says recording of extra meetings. The footnote cuts off at 12,000, and the note is on the next page, imaging of post-retention documents. Our clerk actually went out and got estimates on what it would cost to scan and retain our documents, and this is an estimate for scanning as well as creating like a file name based on address and folio number so that we would have electronic copy of all of our documents.
So that isn't recording like what's going on right now here at this meeting?
No, sir, that's the scanning of the old street files.
Right, because that was a question that I was going to have, and you explained it, because where it says recording of the extra meetings.
The footnote
It's sort of
continues on to
confusing.
the next page.
I see that.
On the lobbyist, Dave Caserta,
Correct.
so that, remind me, we agreed last year, what was his?
Okay, Mr. Caserta's general monthly fee is $2,000 a month. This past year, he agreed to $1,500 at 10 months. The year before, he agreed to $7,500 for the session. And that was after he had done a good 2 weeks' worth of work, including escorting 3 of us around the Capitol for free, pro bono.
Right.
So this is his real compensation. As I mentioned at last week's commission meeting, this year I suspect a lot of our talks in Tallahassee are not going to be about funding issues, but instead about legislation. And one of the things that he did track for us last year, and it made a lot of movement, was the law enforcement assessment bill. And I think that if we are committed to that law enforcement assessment bill, that we will be leaning hard on Mr. Caserta to get us some face time in front of important committees and making sure that they understand our story and why something like that might be important to us.
I just, it's not necessarily a position I'm taking, but I just want to make sure everyone's comfortable with paying him on a 12-month
I'm
basis.
comfortable.
Yep.
Don't forget the session also starts early this year.
It's an extra long session,
Yeah.
and he's.
What he
No,
is.
he's been tremendous for us.
I was going to say, for what he's been bringing us in as far as on grants or, these things, the dollar amounts,
No, absolutely.
I think
I just want
he's
to make sure.
doing an excellent job.
Yeah, not, to play devil's advocate, I think he's done a wonderful job, and I'm not completely opposed to this, but the law enforcement assessment bill, I think, is something that many other cities will be lobbying for.
Yes, it will be.
So I don't know that that means that much that the little village of Biscayne Park is going to make a case for that. I think that a lot of lobbyist dollars from many municipalities will be going towards that. So I don't think that, is the compelling argument, most compelling argument for awarding a 12-month contract.
But it actually, the argument for passing that legislation, I think, is particularly compelling for smaller villages. I could be wrong, but. Right?
Yeah,
But
I think it's no different than when we went up for the $1 million, and that's when he was pro bono that day, by the way, or the course of 2 days. He was able to knock on doors from people from other parts of the state who have no interest and preconceived notions at the same time of Miami-Dade County, and allow us to tell the story of our log cabin and what we were up there to seek. So I think it's not so much for that he would be there fighting for the bill, that he has that ability to open doors for these committee members, these committee chairs that are not from down here and we just don't have access to, and it will allow us to testify in front of those committees. That's what the city manager did. And the mayor did from North Lauderdale. They were able to get in front of the committees and tell the story of North Lauderdale and why North Lauderdale needed that law enforcement assessment. And I think that's what I expect Mr. Caserta to do for us as well.
So we're paying him back or catching up from when he did us a lot of favors at a discount.
I think that's fair to say, too.
I think we're going to end up, through this session, we're going to be coming up with a lot of items that we're going to ask him to help us on. I've got a couple of questions on the telephone communications.
Okay.
That's, do you need the number? Okay, you got it. On the
Sorry, Commissioner?
519541.
Got it, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you need a line item, I was going to tell you. On the Comcast for the recreation, it says one line and the internet, it's $150 a month. That seems to be, it's a lot.
It's an individual building.
It's not
With-
just internet.
Yeah,
it's
the phone line as well. It's not hooked into the system that we have because it's a satellite location.
So
So it doesn't fall under the $4,000 that we pay, or the $2,500 that we paid the state.
have we looked at having a phone line through the internet instead of, so we just have to have internet in here?
We can explore that. I would just want to make sure that there's full access because often they have to call 911.
You would. That's what I have. There's a lot of people have that system. They have internet phone systems.
Yes, like I said, I'd like to explore that, make sure that it's something that the police chief's comfortable with and it's something that would work for us. We're going to continue to crunch these numbers and talk to Comcast for bundles and packages and those type of things, but this is based on what we're currently paying.
Because, I can go through each one of them, but they're all basically the same. If we could take a look to see what we can do, because it just seems like that's a lot of money to have, a phone line and internet.
Okay.
Just on legal, which is 531150, are we on track to reach 70, or are we going to be low this year?
I'll take that one. Mr. Hearn is always a couple months behind in submitting his bills to us, and it makes us hard for us to reconcile our books.
Labor of love.
On the
I think
public record, I've stated it now.
I believe we'll be slightly under that, anticipating that.
Close
Yeah.
to 70, but slightly under.
We're projecting you,
At 7,
yeah, right
Yeah,
around
I
there,
think
right
we-
under.
depending what happens, yeah, we'll be under 7.
I'll show you.
But close. Okay.
Well, it seems like that number then is pretty
You're in the
accurate,
wrong
what is
section.
being budgeted
Yeah, you're in
for.
the 519. 519.
Are we still discussing that, or are we going to switch over to something else? Because I think, my next question, I think you've already answered, Manager, but I just want to make sure. Where it shows repair and maintenance log cabin, and we're budgeting nothing there.
Which line is that?
I'm sorry. Okay, that's,
546.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, got it,
546.
got it.
Yes, that's under Public Works, as is pest control.
So we do have, because even though the log cabin's going to be refurbished, I mean, there is going to be maintenance, so we are budgeting some money for that. And same thing for repair and maintenance of equipment.
I'm sorry?
Repair and maintenance of
Then-
equipment, that's under Public Works?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the 546 numbers, the buildings in every budget. So if you go to 539, 546, you'll see the same. You'll see the log cabin called out there.
Okay, so we do have the dollars, it's just been transferred over to Public Works. Okay.
At the bottom of that same page, the thing that we opened up on for this department was the imaging for post-retention documents, which everybody's made such headway already in getting our paperwork in order and getting us streamlined and putting things where they need to be, catching up on ancient stuff, particularly in code. But I'm wondering if this item, imaging of post-retention documents, isn't something that we can put on the maybe list if we need to draw funds to fund some of the other things that we want to accomplish,
You mean not to do it or to delay
Do
it?
it next year, maybe.
to do it next year.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I disagree. I think our records are so archaic where we can go ahead and to have it electronically that it's easier access. I think
Oh,
it's
yeah, I think we
important.
This is not for the current records. The current records are being,
No, I'm talking about the old records, and that's the problem, because of old records, we sort of miss things too often. I think to bring these, and we need to get them
So the
electronically.
current records are scanned? Okay, so this system would allow current and,
My plan is to have staff start scanning them. Once we get into the new building, we set up a number system and those type of things. It will be closer to October 1st, starting a fiscal year, and scanning everything going forward.
okay, and also, I mean, put the burden on,
Right,
The
the large
applicant-
projects, but a swimming pool, we're gonna scan it. We're not gonna ask
no,
them.
I'm just saying,
yeah,
but
yeah.
for something larger, have them give you
New
a CD with the
houses,
plans.
those type
and-
of things,
We've done that
yes,
already.
yes.
Okay,
And we're
Yes.
better utilizing BSNA.
Right, and we're better we're attaching it in BSNA, and we're using our system.
but I think we all agree that we need to do it, but maybe it's put on the maybe list just in case we need to pull from something.
And we've also identified space throughout the village where we would store the files, so instead of
Right.
it being right then, someone might have to come back in an hour or two, or
Right.
wait a day before they get the historical file from us. So we have no intentions of getting rid of the files, just that due to space limitations at the new village hall, they might not be there, but
So is it fair to say that we'll leave it low on the list of priorities in case we need that money this year for something else?
Oh, that's what we're having a discussion.
Well,
That
fair to
imaging
say.
system you're proposing, is it like associated with a document management system where you could do a search, or is it just strictly imaging?
The majority of that cost is the labor, to take all those documents, unstaple it, sort it out,
Right.
scan it.
Right.
Okay, and then there's a monthly cost to maintain it, to have, search capabilities and those
But,
things.
So you would
they're
have
gonna
to search.
be, they're gonna be PDFs that you can search, or is there a profile associated with the document so that it's in a database and you can search by address or by
Exactly.
name or by?
they were gonna say, I think their proposal to us was something obscure like lot and block or something, and we were just gonna say, no, do folio and address. They had like 3 or 4 categories that didn't make sense to me, address,
yeah.
lot and block, and something
Well,
else.
in
and-
my world, like when you do a litigation file, you scan all of your discovery and you have different fields that you fill in or
Right.
get drawn from, so that it makes it a more useful
Right.
search.
I'm just really concerned because it's been a number of years that this keeps surfacing, and we just, for whatever reason, we don't seem to fund it. And I think this is just going to be one more time that we just kick the can down the street for another year. I'd rather keep the funding in there, and let's get started with it.
Okay, well, why don't we just put it on the list as a maybe? All right, and then we can
I'd
discuss.
files
I'd
aren't
rather
going
just
in.
leave it so it's not a maybe. I think it's
Okay,
something that needs to be done.
but you're in agreement with us that we can
There's
postpone it
consensus.
if we need to.
We can think about it.
Okay, all right, so any other consensus? All right, anything else on general government?
So the next department, we're gonna skip ahead through your packet to 524, and that's the building department.
Hold on one second. No, I just want to find out something. No, I know, but this is general government. I just want to make sure I have no other questions.
519, right.
General contingencies. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so 524.
524 is the building department. This is consistent with the previous year. There's no changes essentially to it. I'm just going to point out, this is also in code as well as in finance. We've paid off the purchasing of our accounting software, and we've confirmed that with BSNA, so the $3,333 has gone away from last year. We've also adjusted the building inspector's payment based on 65% of our projected revenue for building permits.
Is there any maintenance fee on that software?
Yes, that's under finance.
Okay.
There's an annual fee.
Because
that
I
we
see
just put it
this-
in one place under finance
All
to
right.
streamline it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Any questions on building? Seems pretty straightforward. Anything?
Yeah, just that, it's on here on the budget that it's unfunded, the upgrade for the online permitting applications. Another one of those things, maybe we don't do it this year, but I'd like to keep that on our radar to upgrade.
But wait, that's not
Next year.
included though.
Right.
Right, okay.
Yes.
That is
Yeah, no,
for-
I think that's a great,
It's $4,000, so
Right, okay.
it's
Yeah,
a
next
reasonable
year.
amount.
Okay.
So it
Okay.
always concerns me, next year, we find that next year, it just keeps getting, everything keeps getting moved down.
I know, but I say it again, I mean, I think this is a relatively unique year where we have, if this budget is approved, we have the log cabin Phase 4, and we also have the debt service. So it's a somewhat unique year, I think. But I agree, we need to get those things done. All right, code enforcement.
And where were all these insights and urgencies
No, we're
when we
doing-
agreed to 9.7?
I think you made that point.
We're doing
I won't stop.
Parks and Recreation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Parks and
Doing a bad
Recreation
job
is,
tonight.
Parks and Recreation is 572.
I'm doing a horrible job tonight. All right.
It's a good thing you're going to
I
the
gave
mayor's.
you
ins-
votes.
I
I
know.
was-
It's a good thing you're going to the Mayor's Institute this week. Mayor's School.
All right. Parks and Recreation.
Okay, does the email up to them?
Madam Manager.
Parks and Recreation it reflects having one full-time employee, which is the manager, as well as 2 part-time employees. It also includes the program split fee. That is because it's reflected under revenue, and then we pay back to the service providers. We've moved out of here most of the landscaping and maintenance. There is some stuff for equipment that is specific to the recreation center. I just want to remind you that we have the line item from 2,600, and we're showing you how we got to that 2,600, but that's generally a guess.
Right.
We might not need to replace a backboard, for example, but we might find that we need to replace a soccer net or something like that. So we try to guess what is going to happen, but our crystal balls aren't that great. Under buildings, some things that are specific in here for the building include security cameras, recycle bins. These are permanent ones that match the style of our garbage bins to go around the perimeter of the park. One of our barbecue grills recently broke off the top of the pole that was supporting it, so we'd like to replace that. And materials to replace repair the dugout roof. If you looked at it, it's missing shingles. Recently, there was discussion regarding the water fountain outside. That's under Public Works. It is funded, but it's under Public Works. You'll see that the special events budget went up $5,000. That $5,000 is accommodated on the revenue side for sponsorships. Both the recreation manager and the public services manager have worked on past projects. It was kind of a mid-year idea that we scrambled to do, but it's something we're prepared to do throughout this year with sponsorship packages from businesses and corporations for our events to start bringing in revenues to help sustain some of those events, so we can improve our events and at the same time bring in some revenue to support that improvement.
Why are the Walk-a-Hound events next to free, and the Bark of July is very expensive?
The Walk of Hound is when we just do a community walk through the
Yeah.
village. We buy, if we don't have someone making donations, we buy dog treats, we buy the bowls to drink the water
Right.
out of, those type of things. The Bark of July includes an obstacle course, sound
Oh,
system,
oh.
it's more of an event that
Right.
takes place here.
I mean, do you think it's feasible to get sponsorships for all these events and not have it cost us?
I don't think it's as easy as we would like it to be, because we don't have a large well to pull from. We don't have a commercial district with the downtown where we can tap different businesses all the time. We're going into North Miami Shores, and competing with their chambers and those type of things when we're seeking sponsorships. Those residents who have businesses here, if their home base is in Aventura, they're also doing things there. So we don't have that deep of a well here.
And
But we
Publix and
brought-
Costco are not easy to get money from.
No, it's not like it used to be. Corporate only gives them a little,
Right.
and they've got their elementary school already set up and those type of things. I found that in the previous city I was in. You don't walk in and talk to the Publix manager anymore and walk out with a $1,000 check or
No,
even like 10 packs of water. It just doesn't
No,
happen
we
that
tried
way.
that with the foundation.
Yeah.
It was not easy.
Yeah, yeah. But they have this package and they, you know, they did bring in some sponsorships for it. I want to say they brought in 750 to 1,000 for Winterfest.
We get CMB without too much trouble.
Just looking at the overall Parks and Recreation budget, and that's sort of one of my starting places in being involved in committees. In the last 2 years, we've gone from, in 13-14, the department budget was 194,738. In the current year, the budget was 167,483. And now 127, just a little bit over 127 is being proposed. And I think that that difference is not really made up with the electric and the telephones that will move to another direction. This is like the most used facility in the village. More people frequent this place than any other facility that we have, except maybe Public Works these days with everybody clustered in there.
It's a fire
And
hazard.
I see more and more activities and more programs and more things happening here. I'm afraid that we're not budgeting enough. And I don't have no idea how our full-timer is going to take a vacation because we only have 2 support part-timers, you know, to make the hours, to make sure that we have people here. And supervision, we've learned from experience, you need to have eyes on at this facility for as long as it's open. So I don't know how we're going to do it, but I think that we need at least one other part-timer to, you know, fill the hours that need to be filled to have supervision here. And we've seen what happens when we don't have supervision. It's hard to get rid of those bad experiences. Once they happen, people walk away and they don't want to come back. We're getting it to such a great place right now. I would hate for us to fall back.
We are.
And considering that we were funding it at 194, almost 195,000 2 years ago, I think that this is too drastic of a cut.
How do we
I do
keep
want,
track of
I
this?
do want to just put you, it doesn't explain the entire difference from last year and this year, but I want to point out one of those differences is last year we budgeted for a full-time, 2 full-times, 1 part-time. So with that full-time, you had some benefits. Doesn't make the whole 40, but that's where some went, and then
Right.
the rest is the utilities and the function. I'm sorry,
I
Commissioner?
was just asking you, how do we contract this every year? It's not just a matter of shifting things in the budget. Are we losing staff, or what are we doing to make this cheaper?
Well, it was changing it from a full-time to a part-time is one of the big changes, as well as moving items into Public Works. When you combined all those, I think that's where the $40,000 difference is.
I mean, my understanding is that we're going to have a workshop in the future, in the near future, hopefully, about the entire recreation center and the park and how we envision using it, and if we're going to make changes, what changes, what the budget is, what revenue we're getting in, how much it's costing us, who's using the park, is it our residents, is it mostly non-residents? So I think we're going to have that global discussion, so I'm inclined to leave it as is until we have that discussion and then revisit it.
And
To leave it at the current funding from this
Yeah,
year?
yeah.
also, you would...
Leave it as what she's proposing.
Right.
What the manager is proposing.
127.
Because we also need to take a look at, part-time people actually is the ideal way to run this, because you figure during school season, it's very underutilized here during school days. After school lets out, we already have somebody else here that parents sign up for watching their children. So you actually have other people here paying attention to what's going on. It isn't something we have to have full-time people here 5 days a week or 6 days a week, because during school time, it's a waste of manpower.
Well, typically our users show up about 2 o'clock on, and that's when our part-timers are here. But Shalisa is generally here all morning and kind of tied to the building. We've been very fortunate with the volunteer services of our other full-time, part-time, almost full-time employee of Rosemary, the resident who volunteers here 2 days a week on a regular schedule, that Shalisa's able to come over, do some finance stuff with us at Village Hall and those type of things. But, it does start getting busy at 2 o'clock, and that's usually when she has the extra staff here to do other things, but it's late in the day and it's busy. And I just want to reflect on something Commissioner Ross says. I've seen, since I've started here, such a greater control and span of control by the behavior out there. And I'm not applauding staff right now. I'm just saying that there's really something to be said about boots on the streets out there. And we've come up with this plan where they have to walk, like literally we tell them where they have to be at a certain time and what they need to do. And I think it's sent a very strong message out to the users. People know that we have an expectation of behavior, and having staff here is really what's key to it. It's not intimidating staff or a certain person or anything like that. It's just having those blue shirts out there at all times. And I know I've said this at commission meetings, but it's really true. If you're standing around here around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, when the staff's preparing this building for a meeting, you'll see young men come in all sweaty from the basketball court, and you just turn around and see them, and they put their hands up, and they're like, I'm just getting water. I'm like, they know the rules. They don't harass me. I know your rules. I'm coming in to get water. I know you have a meeting. I'm getting out of here type thing. So we've sent that message out. There's still users here, but they really are abiding by our rules. And when they don't,
No,
they're
that's great to hear, and
told,
you definitely see a difference.
Yeah.
But-
So you definitely need to have, in order to enforce the rules, you need to have someone here.
when we
Right.
first crafted our budget, I'm sorry. When we crafted our budget, we had 3 part-timers in here. And at 18,000, I had to pull it out because I had to accommodate other things. So
So my
that was
concern
in
is-
here.
Well, that's the issue, though. Are you and Shalisha satisfied, or do you think this is too tight and we need to put another part-timer back in?
This is as is, and it's tight. We could use some wiggle room.
Okay.
I could use all the time.
So you'd like to put 18,000 back in there?
If that's the will of the commission, it's something that we considered from the get-go. I believe it's in that cover memo as well, that it's something that we pulled out.
Commissioner Watts?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and I remember this conversation from the last year, and Commissioner Ross voiced many of the same, things as eloquently as this year. However, I have a couple of problems, maybe they're really nitpicky, but before I get to them, I was thinking, if it's tight, we need more staff, I think that we should actively pursue having an intern and getting an internship with people from FIU, from Barry University, or whatever. Because I would believe that, Lisa, didn't you do internships when you were getting your master's? And bachelor's? Okay, I think that could help solve our problem. It might be a little too late for this year, but all you need to do is contact the person who handles internships in the specific program and write a little description. And I think that we may well fund it that way, and have people here. Then the other thing is, I do still think that Bark of July was awfully expensive, and I had written down in the notes, I talked with the village manager about this, that, about bounce house cost $600, but then I thought we didn't have a bounce house at the 4th of July, because it was a dog event, I think. So I'm just.
It was
the
an
obstacle
inflatable, yeah, it's an
Yeah,
inflatable
inflatable
obstacle
thing?
course, yeah.
Inflatable for the obstacle course. I still think there's a way to save money on that in some ways. And then just curious, all right, I feel uncomfortable voting for an increase, actually, in the special events, when I don't know what the special events are going to be. I think it's wonderful that Shalisa and Christian have started this thing of getting people getting companies to donate, so that we have here a $5,000.
But they are
The
listed.
They're listed out here.
No, but what in additional, so that even, but you said that this doesn't count, that we're having another $5,000 will be in donations, right?
It's offset on the
It's
other
offset by
side.
the revenue.
Okay. I didn't
It's
see
just
that.
to augment these, and it reflects the real cost of the supplies and those type of things.
Okay, so it's
that we-
for no different events. Okay, then that's fine, thank you.
We did enhancements this year to our events, and there's been a great, signature events in the village for many years, but I can just, coming to the top of my mind, at Winterfest, it snowed. Those are the type of enhancements that we did this year. So it's just little things, adding touches to these events that seem to be very, very popular.
Okay.
I was trying to think what we did at Easter that was different. I know there was something, I can't remember. Or Halloween, I'm sorry.
The bounce houses were completely
Yeah, the bounce houses.
I came in Saturday that the Logo Club kicked off.
The Lego?
The Lego
Yeah,
Club kicked off the logo. Right. And it was great seeing those kids in there, you know, being creative. And then they were made to go and present what it is that they did so that it, you know, helps them develop presentation skills and oration skills. And, I think it's wonderful, all the stuff we're doing here. I'm really impressed with the part-timers, the recent part-timers. They seem like they're doing a really good job, and I know that they're getting close to minimum, well, I mean, very little money. And so when the place is run by part-timers, I'm concerned that we're giving a level of responsibility that really is not commensurate with the pay that they're getting. We're very fortunate that you found the right people to fit into those positions, but they need, and you need, Shalisa, I think you need support.
Does somebody have a really, really noisy artificial heart valve?
No, it's outside. It's a swing outside.
Oh, it could be our swing. We have to oil it like once a month. Yeah.
Do we have oil in the budget?
So I'm going to
We're so
propose that
used to
we find, if it's not the full 18, but at least $14,000 somewhere to add some hours, part-time hours to support.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't know, my preference is to wait until we revisit this whole thing, because I think perhaps there's going to be some
Do you guys
changes.
recall how many hours?
But I'm just concerned too that we keep on saying, we're going to pull this, I mean, we're going to find money this way, 14,000 here, 12,000 here. You know, it's,
You ready?
no, I'm not ready.
Yeah,
and
I
don't
agree
know
with
if-
you. I completely agree.
It's 18 each.
I think we need to do that analysis as to what's happening here and who's using it and how much money it's costing and.
I thought we had done some kind of surveys, and it proved that many of the users, most of the users do live here.
And also too, to hear back
Did
from.
we get that report? I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, we did some, two random surveys,
Yeah.
you know, of that. And I have a sit-down roundtable scheduled for in September with parents that we're gonna start reaching out to them right after school starts, so not to overwhelm their schedule.
But I thought we were going to do a workshop.
Well, we had talked about
with the
doing the
community.
master plan type idea, but that's not funded, so we
No,
would
but
have to decide if. how
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
don't,
do
and
this.
that's not funding a master plan, but just having a workshop with residents to hear what they want to, what changes they want to see, if any, to the park and to hear how it functions and how much it costs and who's using it.
I agree, because I think too, some people have been very vocal about what they want.
Right.
And it's easy to think that, because 3 people say that they want this, that means everybody wants it.
Right.
And in fact, only half a dozen have said so, and a few others will have expressed.
But there's a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that when this department is fully staffed, it functions better. The kids and the users are better behaved, and everything just works better.
No, and it is working better.
Yeah,
They're doing it.
so then we trimmed the staffing after things work better, and maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. Maybe that was the
No,
right
but
amount of
it's currently,
staffing.
it's currently operating right now.
Tight.
Huh?
Very tight.
Okay, but.
But may I? The Lego Club that Commissioner Ross was just speaking about is being run by one of our part-timers. So while he's in here doing that kind of programming, which is just amazing, the talent that he brings to us is not just someone who can, be a security guard outside. We have to have another part-timer outside. I'd love to see those kind of using my staff more for programming as opposed to walking around. And so that's where we're tight. In order to, we have to pick and choose when we do this type of programming, when we can accommodate the second person being here and those type of things.
And when you do that kind of engagement of the kids, That's where you're gonna get the draw of the residents and the people who move here because they like the amenities that are offered here. And
The
those
other-
are the people that are
right.
commanding the elevated prices of a home. But my question was gonna be, and I don't wanna get too personal, but you get vacation time. How
Yeah,
much time do
she
you
won't be
get?
here next Tuesday when we're here. She'll be
So,
off.
so, you know, when our part-timer is gone, that means the keys are in the hands of two, I mean, when our full-timer is gone, the keys are in the hand of two part-timers, and they have to somehow magically cover
Not
the
just
missing
that,
hours.
not just that. We have a public works employee who covers for us when she's not here during the day as well.
So then it takes away from, you know, that whole, it's like a domino effect, then it takes away from those obligations and duties and things that need to be met, trimming the medians and, you know,
No,
maintaining
listen,
our
I
buildings.
understand. Again, I go back to who's using it, and I don't know how that poll was taken, but.
Doesn't really matter who's
Wasn't
using it, if there are
statistically
people here,
Well,
you need to
it
have
does
supervision.
matter that if we're funding, if we're funding a recreation center that, you know, a large percentage of people who are using it are not residents, I think that is a problem.
Well, then
So
we
then
can
do
do
we
what
gonna-
Miami Shores
so we're
does.
gonna
We
put
can
a fence
charge
around
people
it
who
and
don't
close it
live here,
down?
but
What?
we should still provide the right service.
I think the manager's budget is supplying the people that need to be here. It's been working. The manager's comfortable with it. Let's just stay with that.
I mean, look, we can put it on the list as if we can find the money, then I'm all for it. But I just think at some point we're going to have to make tough decisions because we can't do everything. So let's put it on the list.
Can we put it on the maybe list?
Yeah.
I would like to
Okay.
ask
Commissioner
Shalisa something. Shalisa, how many hours, when you had an internship, when you were an undergraduate and a graduate, approximately how many hours did you work at the internship?
It was for a short period of time, but it was 40 hours. But because I had to take an exam to qualify for it. So.
But, yeah, I mean, we gotta be careful with internships. I did plenty of mine throughout my education. We all have. And they go home for spring break, they go home for the holidays, they go on vacation, they have class schedule changes.
And they have to be
those type
cleared
of
if
things.
they're
And
here
it's-
with
and we're
kids.
training them the whole time that they're here. They're not that reliable person. And if they started the Lego club and then the semester's up and they don't come back, you know.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be, if it's a one semester thing, there would be some other body here, someone looking at things. I mean, what did you do in your internships? Didn't you take on certain responsibilities?
Mine was a little more specialized
Yeah.
because I did like recreational therapy as well.
Mhm.
So it was more kind of different settings besides
Okay.
the park setting.
Yeah. I just think that we should explore it. And if we feel that it's tight with having people here, that if we had interns, it would be a win-win situation.
I'm not against the idea of using interns, but I see that more as gravy than
Right.
meeting our needs. And I'm not so sure I'm comfortable, as was just presented, with the budget. It's in our memo. We did have 3 employees in here, just like the merit pay increases. This is a cut that we had to make in order to bring you a balanced budget, and I've been pretty clear that it's tight. I mean, I think I appreciate the consensus for it to be on the maybe list.
Okay, is there a consensus to put it at maybe?
Yes.
That's the best I can get.
All right.
And what amount?
18.
18?
Well, then we have to look, there's also Claude will have to provide, just like we have for the other employees, the FICA, the FRS, and those type of things. So it comes to closer to about 22, 24, I believe, each, is what we discussed.
Optimal. If we can't get to that point, then, you know, it'll be a lesser.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Capital improvements.
Okay, so
Appropriations.
the best way to do it is through the appropriations,
Yep.
because our actual capital improvements, thank you, our actual capital improvements are in progress, but this is more about funding of Phase 4 of the log cabin, meeting our payment obligation for our commercial loan, and our final match for the historic preservation grant that we received, which was the 50,000. So it's outlined at the top of your budget, page 1, under appropriations. One of the things I'm very proud of, and I think I've shared that with all of you, is I think it's a great accomplishment, as much as we're talking here about the maybes and what we can and cannot add in, that Biscayne Park is able to accommodate $135,000 improvement $135,000 improvement to the village within the budget. And I think that says a lot about our fiscal health, our property values, and where we stand right now. So the $135,000 is based on the proposal schedule of values that we received from Mackenzie Construction. If you recall, when we entered into the contract with them, it was for three phases, phases 1, 2, and 3, with a pending funding on phase 4 to go to them. We are in that point of construction where we need to make a decision on whether we are going to proceed with phase 4 and what a couple of the specifics within phase 4. I did reach out to our banker at City National Bank, and he did come back to me with the information that the bank said that they would extend our loan. They would allow us to open it up and extend it, but it would be a one-time to cover the overage, and they wanted to make it very clear to us that it was a one-time and it was a special accommodation that they would make for us. But I have to tell you, in looking at our budget and talking about what we'll do in future years and those type of things, we also ran the numbers, and if we were to borrow $150,000, that adds $13,600 to our debt service every year. And having a debt service of right now of 32.4, where we pledge our half-cent sales tax, when we originally presented the idea of the loan and there was some resistance to it, we felt very confident with covering $32,000 in future years and pledging that much of our communication services tax. I'm not sure professionally if I feel comfortable pledging $46,000 for the next 15 years or less, depending on when we pay the loan off. I think close to $50,000 is a little too much for us to obligate every year. And going back to my original statement, I think it's really remarkable that we were able to accommodate the 135. And as a former commissioner here told me, you'd never borrow money if you have the money in the bank, and he was upset when we were originally borrowing the money, and I kind of hear him in my head sometimes when I think about this issue. So he drives a blue Corvette, if you know who I'm talking about. He spoke very
Yes, we
strongly.
know.
We had many one-on-one conversations about it, and I have to agree with that. That's just my professional opinion. So that 135 is accommodated here under the transfer outs to the Capital Improvement Fund.
Okay.
So we are going to talk about the phase 4 later on.
Right, well, I guess, why don't, if I may, why
Yep.
don't we discuss how to achieve phase 4 with the funding, and then what's included in phase 4?
Yeah. Okay. All right, so the discussion now is whether to include the 135 in the budget or whether to add it to the debt service?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Commissioner Anderson?
So I'm looking at, if we included it in the debt service, it would free up $135,000 in this budget for other things, other items. Not necessarily we need the full 135. Maybe we could split it down the middle, and this gives us a little bit of money to accommodate other things that the Commission's been talking about on the wish list. But if you're uncomfortable to go ahead and be adding more to our debt service, you figure in the future it's going to be hard to pay back that money tonight. You know, I can understand that because this is a one-shot deal.
You know, and if you think about it, then you almost go into next year. We know we're going to be on an upswing next year, just based on what's for sale, what we're seeing. At least next year, we know we're on an upswing. You basically go into next year with $135 extra, $135,000 extra sitting in your budget. You know, it will be eaten up. We'll have a lot to do,
Right.
but you
But
know,
what if we
we're
did-
accommodating it now.
But what-
I was just
No,
going
go
to,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't disagree with you. You know, the reasoning is just to, if we don't do that, which I can understand, then the Commission needs to go ahead and take a look at their wish lists and going to have to pare it back somewhat. And then maybe next year, when we don't have that in the budget, then we could start with the putting the wish lists off for 1 year.
I mean, it just seems like maybe the approach is, if the bank is willing to split it in half and finance say 75,000, or finance half of it, because the wish list that we're talking about, you know, it's like 15,000, what was it, 18,000 for Parks and Rec? Is that what it was?
No, it's come up with their benefits, didn't you say like 20?
24.
22?
Well, but my
24?
point is freeing up 75,000 of this 135 will take care of a number of those issues that we were just talking about. Employee raises, Parks and Rec.
There's also a cost associated with opening up that loan. I mean, there's closing expenses and is it worth, is that cost, added cost worth 75,000?
Yeah.
We lost, I think, not lost, but it cost us about $7,000 in closing cost on the other grant loan.
And then, are you, okay, assuming the closing costs are not, are reasonable, with a debt service of, what would it be? It would be like roughly 7,000.
I don't have the loan calculator in front of me, but
If 13,600 was the full amount, right?
you're looking at, here's the thing, you're still in my professional uncomfortable level, because you're obligating us for a debt service of about 40,000 a year, as
Right.
opposed to 46,000. There's not that much difference, you know, over the next 15 years obligating us. You're still, 30
But that could be prepaid, too,
in 5 years.
in 5 years, okay.
Yeah.
If you recall we'll do what the commission says. I feel like, Sharon, we've thought about this and we look at the books and we see where we stand. If you recall, when we presented the 350, there was some discussion, why 350? And it was the number we could back into comfortably with accommodating a debt service in the budget, as well as the pledging of our half-cent sales tax. So that was like our comfort level was around the 30,000 level, so.
I mean, look, I think that if we could, I think we should pay for it now and put it in the budget, and then, like you said, next year we'll be able to put that money in the reserves, you know, and have the ability to go back to putting money.
And if I can say that dirty word, reserves, we did just put 100,000 into the reserves, so maybe cutting half and taking half from there, from our reserves is our savings account, maybe
Yeah.
taking, or maybe not half, maybe taking a third from the reserves right now, and then freeing
then
up
that'll free up
50,000
yeah,
or something
that-
like that, I
Right.
don't know.
I feel more comfortable doing that than,
Adding it to the loan.
our borrowing ordinance requires the manager to certify that we could pay this money
Right,
back
right.
comfortably.
And she doesn't feel
So she's already said she doesn't, now we're gonna pressure her into changing her
That would
mind.
be an interesting report, wouldn't it, John?
Right.
I mean, but I have to be honest with you. I would never want to lead you down a financial road that I'm just not comfortable with. It's a position. You're
No,
obligated
and
a
I-
full employee position.
And I completely agree, because
Yeah.
I was the one that brought up about, opening the loan up again, but, after, what you're saying, and I'm repeating myself, that if the commission can hold off on their wish list till next year, we would have extra money in the future budget. The following budget, because that won't be having that $135,000 hit. And with property values going up, we'll probably be able to accommodate it reasonably easy. So we could then take a look at our wish list, just hold off for a year on it.
Well,
I agree, and I think that to add to the loan, not only will we be throwing away $7,000, but we're forgetting the fact that I think we're in this bubble that's starting again with the cost of with the prices and property values, and a lot of people have in the financial field think that there's going to be another drop just like before, so the bubble will deflate. And so I don't think having to come up with that much money every year was a good idea.
I think if we give the manager the flexibility to work with the reserves, the added reserves portion,
But we don't,
Then-
but we don't have any reserves in this budget. You're saying
Yeah.
pull from the existing reserves?
right,
Okay.
from the reserves, from the funds that are gonna flow over to reserves
We have
from the
101 or
from the current
104,000
year.
that the auditor just approved going into our reserve fund balance.
No,
So
I
if
understand
we afford her the flexibility to see how that fits into the puzzle, some of those things on the wish list are not really add-ons, they're preventing a contraction of funding. So, I don't wanna just right away, write off the wish list and say, you know.
No,
let's
but
not
we have to balance the budget, and so, look, I think, I agree. Let's put it on the list of coming out of, let's keep it at 135 in the budget, and then we still have a number of departments to go through, and perhaps we can find some things that we can, some savings we can get from those other departments, and if not, then we can have that discussion about the reserve, or the 100,000.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
But I think we should definitely we should get the project done, phase 4, we should do it right, and we should do it now, so.
Well, I don't know when we should discuss this, but I do think that we need to discuss the amount of money that's going to vote for the dais.
Yeah, no, let's discuss that. All right, so we're all in agreement to keep the 135. Yes?
The plans?
Yes.
Yes, right here.
We have actual floor plan, I know the dais is the
That's the
sticking
issue,
point.
right.
So we have plans here for the commission to look at that show the layout as well as the design of the dais, just so we're all have a visual in front of us.
You don't have to get up, you can pass it down.
Sheets.
Could we put one on the screen, maybe? No?
If it was something else, I would want to tell them now, but, yeah.
We was just discussing.
Could we put one out in the
It's not borrowing,
audience?
We have.
Way in the back?
Yeah,
Chuck,
just in the back.
Janie?
I'll work with you off of this. Do you mind if I look at my You don't mind master's degrees in history?
Okay. Manager?
That's a good idea. So if you look on the left, I'll walk you through it. On the left, the full floor plan, up at the top where it says number 1, equipment and dais plan. The 2 doors down at the bottom of the plan is the entrance into Village Hall as you were used to. The other 2 doors on the top of the plan are the entrance into the old police station as you were used to. So the way that this project has been designed is that both doors will basically be entrances depending on where you park, where you come from, those type of things, under the idea of this being a meeting hall. Unlike when the Village Hall was, or the log cabin was used as a commission chamber in the past, the dais has been located over on the north wall. That is where Maria's office used to be, for a point of reference. This is a dais that was designed and planned by Heisenbottle and is to be constructed by Mackenzie Craft. I'm looking at this plan down here where it says dais front elevation, and I think we printed out an older plan, but the final plan actually has the front of that dais to look somewhat like a log wall, that it had logs on it. So this was probably one of our in-progress designs that you see. In Mackenzie's proposed schedule of values to us, this was proposed at $24,000. If you're familiar with Mackenzie, who's doing our construction there, they are also a cabinet shop. They do craftsmanship type work. So I think this, as drawn and with their touch to it, will be a really nice craftsman piece of furniture. So the question comes down to whether for it to be permanent, movable, or none at all. I just want to address movable. I don't think that is a possibility, breaking it down, collapsible or something like that. The way it's being designed as a permanent structure, or as the way as it's proposed here, as a permanent structure, includes all of the telecommunication built into the structure. And you can see that under number 2 where it says enlarged dais plans, where it says TMPD. That's your telephone and your internet and your microphone, your sound. All of that is built into the actual dais. If you visit the county, if you visit other cities, including North Miami, El Portal, Miami Shores, you will see that they have a permanent dais where their commission sits. So all of this technology would then be hooked into the ground. Right now, because we're trying to close up the floor in the log cabin, there is conduit underneath the ground, and case it does become a permanent structure, and there will be floor outlets so that it can be connected in. If it's not a permanent structure, there will still be floor outlets there so we can plug into the technology, and you don't have things like this that's in front of us and all the cords and those type of things around us. The building is designed to have a permanent sound system in there and to have the kind of this commission chamber type feeling to it. So I don't think a movable one will actually work. I think it would actually cost you more in design to have Mackenzie build something that has to be deconstructed, and then you have storage issues within the log cabin. And this probably will kind of show my cards on this and where I stand if I haven't already spoken to you about this, but I keep using the analogy. And again, this is from that design perspective and looking at the historic building. You don't build a new house and then put grandma's card table as your dining room table. You go out and you get that nice dining room table to accommodate that design that you have. And I think this building finally, after 80 years, calls for some kind of permanent dais after being a commission chamber. So we've heard in the community about, well, it can be rented out for functions. This is a small building. It's about 27 feet wide and about 35 feet long, roughly. And the fire code allows 102 people when you see the setup that's designed here with all of those seats to the south side. Typically, the rule of thumb for fire codes is when you go to round tables, banquet tables, and those type of things, it cuts it in half from what the assembly number is. So you're only looking at about 50 people in general that could be accommodated in here if someone was to have a function. So we hear, well, people are going to want to get married here, and I think it's a very beautiful setting, and if I ever get married again, I might get married here, but she said she wouldn't get married here, so if I get married again, it would be maybe here. I like that idea. But the truth is there's no catering kitchen. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood. There's limited parking because we just got rid of our gravel lot overflow parking area by building the new village hall. So your audience for renting it is going to be somewhat limited. And I don't think the difference between that area where a permanent dais is going to be and something that wouldn't be there but would be stored off to the side would really make a difference in your rental capacity. I've also spoken to many of you about what we could do is go and get someone to design and construct like a permanent canvas cover for this, like a boat quality, a very high quality cover for the dais so that it can be covered when it's not in use and people are renting out the space to protect it. And then they could also maybe use that for like a serving area or those type of things. But my recommendation is to do the permanent dais and give the commission chambers the importance that it needs. But we are looking for direction because between the funding and the construction of the dais, if it does take place, and the finalization of some of that conduit, we need to get back to Mackenzie. We need to get the Phase 4 construction contract to you and all of those type of things. And so it's very important that during this budget process that we talk about this.
Let me, just to clarify, I think everyone knows here, but the seating is not permanent, it's not fixed, right?
No,
Those are just
they're
okay.
stackable
So the
chairs.
only thing
It's
that's
intended
fixed
to be
is the
stackable, yeah.
dice.
So
Okay.
those boxes that are drawn under the seating, they're not elevated, they're in the ground. They're at the floor level.
Those are, you mean all the seats, the seating?
I'm sorry, you were referring to the audience seating.
The audience seating, right.
Those boxes around the seating are just measurement lines. They're not actual boxes.
Right.
They're not a platform.
For the dais seating?
Yeah.
It's not platform?
It's not
Okay.
platform.
So the dais is just going to be the same level as the others?
Correct, correct.
Why does it look like it's 2.5 feet tall?
Yeah,
The
well,
desk.
3 feet
is-
up to the top.
A desk is 3 feet.
No, from the ground to the dais, looks to me like it's 2.5 feet. Am I reading it wrong?
No, it is.
That's awfully high, isn't it?
No, a desk is typically about 2.5 to 3 feet off the ground.
Mhm.
I mean, the floor of the dais, how much higher is that than the floor?
Not.
No, it's
Not-
that grade. It's
Oh,
like this. It
oh,
would be
it's the
like this.
same level?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not an elevated dais.
It's pretty much at the same height that you're sitting
So-
now on the
So
flat
up to
ground.
here is to the top of, it's to this?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You can see.
Um,
And
Yeah.
then there's an extra like 4.5 feet, 4 feet, 2 inches of a, where like the nameplates go in front of
Correct.
the commission.
I'm really not comfortable having a permanent dais. I mean, it's a good location compared to where the old one used to be, but even where the old one was, it just sort of disrupted when you used the room for other
Where
events.
was the old one?
It was
the
basically backed up
bathrooms.
to the restrooms.
Oh. And the seating was,
The seating was when you came in through the front door, you were facing towards the dais. The other thing is, this is also going to be used for all of our board meetings and stuff. So with a permanent dais, it sort of limits where your board sets up, whereas the board's going to be using the dais.
The
Yeah,
board,
like
would-
others.
other cities, the
Yeah, they
boards
would
use
use
the
it.
dais.
Yeah, they would sit up here like
Mm-hmm.
at other cities.
Planning boards, they all use the dais at other cities.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound horrible, but I mean, we're an amazing village. It's been here for a very long time, but it's time for us to be a real municipality. You know, we have a village hall now. Our police are coming out of a trailer. Let's be a real city. Every city I know has a dais, and it's something to be proud of. It's the center of our government.
you don't think it hamstrings us too much if we make that permanent? You can't use that space for anything else?
I don't. I think because the chairs are not permanent, so I think you have that wide open space. And the only thing I would like to make sure is that the dais could be used as like a buffet. Like, in other words, is it flat on top or is it tri-leveled?
I think it's bi-level. I think it's like in that middle there, it's like 4 inches. And we can accommodate that design. We can take that off and make sure it's
Like,
flat.
because I would like to see that, it be able to be used as if we wanted to, a buffet or
Yeah.
something like that, or some type of use when there is a function there that somebody wants some type of.
I just don't want to
flat
mislead you.
platform.
I think from the design perspective, you're sitting here at the dais, and there's this little ledge, and I think it's to accommodate some of the IT and those type of things that there.
Right.
You don't
No,
want a
no,
flat
understood.
surface, so there will be like a little shelf,
Yeah.
and then,
Is it looks like it's 4-inch up
4
in the
inches,
front.
yeah.
Looks like
Yeah.
it's up 4 inches.
and
above
And
that's
something
tip,
like this.
yeah, and it's typical of the
Yeah,
other
probably.
dioceses that I've been at. That's where your plugs
Yeah,
are and
yeah.
those type of things.
I just think, it would be wonderful to be able to have a temporary system where we can move it, but you really can't if you want to have the professional sound system. I mean, you know the difficulties we have with these things and
Well,
the
if you-
nightmare it is.
If you have all the plugs in the floor, in your design where you're going to be sitting, each commissioner will be plugged into the floor.
Yeah, again, I think it's symbolic and it's the center of our village, and I think it's important to have a permanent dais. We have plenty of space to have large functions. This doesn't preclude using the space as a function, but I'm in support of the design. I think they're going to do an excellent job, and Mackenzie specializes in woodcraft, so I think it's going to be beautiful and something that we can be proud of.
Just to clarify again, those chairs behind the dais, they are movable, they're not permanent.
Correct. They're office chair.
So, yeah, I agree with the mayor. I think that it is time for us to have a more formal setting. It says we're a real city. I love the idea of incorporating the wood design and the face of it, and we talked about the canvas cover, having it so that it could be used for a buffet, for a small intimate, a small gathering, or it could be used for a presentation table. It has other functions, so you're not entirely locked in.
I've been in commission chambers where they've had dinners. We were at the Medley League of Cities, and they had a dinner in their commission chambers. A bunch of people got married in one fell swoop at the Wilton Manors Commission Chamber recently. Sunny Isles, the commission. It's not unusual for the dais to be there. And I was just looking around this room, and folks rent this room for parties, and that is always over there, and these cabinets are always over there, and I know they're pushed up against the wall, but it's not uncommon for these things to be
Yeah, I think
around.
the key is not to have the fixed seating. I mean, if this was fixed seating, then I would agree.
Oh, no, yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm saying
yeah.
that's what gives us the flexibility to really utilize the space in other, in other
But-
respects, but
But $24,000 is a lot of money.
Well, $24,000 is essentially giving up a third of the room.
well, wait a minute, though. The 24,000, is the electrical and everything is already paid for as well?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's the craftsmanship, and we can always ask, we are gonna go to a contract for Phase 4, we can ask
We can
Mackenzie
negotiate, yeah.
to see what they can do for it, but it is a craftsman piece of, and, it's going to accommodate technology in it.
Yeah, yeah.
I just think I was over there this afternoon, and it's a small room, and one-third of the room being given over to the dais is, I think, excessive. What I would suggest is a compromise. I'd like to see a design for something that could be folded up, or just even that if we keep the one part, the straight line, like it would be, and then have the the sides of it extend out. Maybe those two sides could be something that were fitted in that could be moved.
Yeah, it's just that,
That would
you're probably adding to the cost of it by doing
Well,
that.
I know, but
yeah.
I'd like a solution that would actually make this space more usable for other things. For
But
greater
let me
variety of things.
pose this to you. If you have an event, usually you don't have an event with just everyone standing around, right? You need some type of tables to put food, drinks, right? So there's not when you have an event, it's just not one open room. You need some type of.
Well, gee, I went to a birthday party there, and it was one big open room, and
Oh.
it was lovely.
I think you can use this again for events where you can
Yeah.
put food and
Yeah, but all right, if we're going to spend money for this, I'd prefer to spend more money, to make it so that we just have the one part, and then there are two additions that could be collapsible and be moved, so that there would be more space for the room.
okay. Commissioner Jonas, thoughts?
I think that also,
What's up?
that has an impact not only on the cost of it, but on the durability of your equipment and your thing, your electrical.
To work together all
And
the
the
same.
historic floor, and the floor.
Thoughts?
I just hate to spend the money, and I hate to tie up that space like that, but I think I'll count myself as outvoted.
So you'll support it?
No, I'll let you outvote me.
But, well, right now it looks like you're not
It's like
outvoted.
you're
I
outvoted?
think we could just wait and see.
Yeah, sure, come on up.
I gotta tell you, I was against the idea of a permanent dais, but after listening to the explanation,
talk.
I'm for it now. I think it looks more professional. And, the point's been made a couple of times, where are you gonna store it? We've got no place to store it. And so, I'm for it now.
Great.
I was absolutely against it too. Because 24th, I'm sorry.
Not your
Janie
name.
Anderson, 11th Place, 119th Street. I was absolutely against it, figuring there's got to be any number of better places to spend $24,000. Then I started to think, 37 years of living here and watching us hold things together with us. I think I said last week, bubble gum, rubber bands, and on a good year, you get a little duct tape. Let's just do it right. Let's just have something polished and finished and proud. And little by little, we might be able to do things in other buildings, but this is our chance now to get it done right. Spend the money.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I think if you want dinner,
Sorry, Bob.
I've got a freezer full of,
I'll go along with it.
All
I
right.
mean, the original commission didn't have a dais.
All right, well, I think,
They didn't
An
have air
AC.
conditioning either, or windows.
we stayed until the mosquitoes got too bad, then we would come over here.
all right, I think we have a consensus here. Commissioner Jonas
I folded.
folded. So there's a consensus
And
to
I'll,
move
and I'll
forward.
talk to Gavin McKenzie himself, and.
Yeah, let's try to negotiate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure after experiencing their craft shop, I'm sure they can add so much to this design and refine it further, so.
Okay. All right.
All I know is sitting on the floor, that looks so much taller than when you're up a little higher. When
All
people are
right.
up at the podium.
That's true.
So the podium will be movable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you going to use that podium or a different one?
We might have Mackenzie spiff it up a little.
Yeah, I think it's time.
They did an amazing job with the conference table that we got, so we might have them do something like that.
Okay.
Very talented folks.
Is
very
that
talented.
it, or?
I believe so, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
So we will,
David, can I make, I'm sorry, when you're done, can I make a comment?
so we'll get back together next Tuesday. We'll keep our parking lot going, and then we'll have a big conversation at the end of that workshop on what finalizing some ideas.
Okay, all right, so we'll do Chuck and then announcements.
Well, I just,
Go ahead.
oh,
Rich,
okay.
no, go ahead.
Sally Hayman sent invitation out to everybody that this Thursday, that the Miami-Dades are having a budget public hearing, and she was asking for,
Yeah, I
people from
forgot.
Biscayne Park to go to it. I know you can't, because you're going to be on your way, and you're going to be going up to League too, Roxy?
No, I'm not going
You're
to
not?
the league. I
It-
was just checking my calendar.
And
It's
that's
at,
what we were going to discuss, right?
Yeah.
it's at 6 p.m. at the City of Aventura Commission
It's one of
Chambers.
the mayor's town hall meetings.
Right.
Miami-Dade County Mayor's town hall meetings.
So,
We'll be at the
Exactly.
league.
is anyone willing to?
Be in Orlando.
It'll be in Orlando. Oh, at the League of Cities?
It-
I'll just stay for a day.
Is there anybody from management
We can send
going?
someone. Yeah, we can send someone, that's no problem.
Because, we ought to at least, she's reached out to us, we need to have some representation.
Can you respond and
Yeah.
and explain that,
Yeah,
that-
I've told her that I'm out of town, but I'll tell her that we'll
That
have
me
someone
too?
there. Mhm.
Okay.
She's been
I'll put
away.
it on my calendar. I don't know if I can get away that early at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
To be in
Law
Aventura.
enforcement.
Is
Yeah,
there any
that's-
message I should convey to the mayor?
Well, basically, here's the letter.
Oh, I have that. Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
All right, Chuck.
Hey.
All right.
if,
Oh, first,
well,
I'll
one is
announce
second-
myself. Chuck Ross,
Wait, 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 wait.
11166
Chuck,
Griffin
just-
Boulevard.
Wait one
Chuck,
second.
1 second.
Yeah,
because,
Bob? Sorry.
Mr. Ross asked if there anything, obviously, we're happy on the support of the public libraries, since our public library happens to be mobile, and definitely to keep it, because it's for their children and the elderly and any other citizens. Because we're on an island away from all other public county libraries.
Okay. Very good.
All right, Chuck.
Oh, okay, so I wanted to, I listened to everything you said tonight. I think that one of the items that was discussed about a part-time person at the rec center, an additional person, needs to be done. I don't think an intern's a good idea in any way, shape, or form. There's no consistency, and it's not somebody you can depend on, and it'd be like a rotating door, so I think I'm dead set against that. I think that the idea of possibly borrowing some money from the reserves, let's call it, maybe 50 grand or so then we could possibly repay that money to the reserves the following year, as opposed to borrowing the bank is a good idea, because that way we could possibly fund some of these additional items that are on the wish list, which sounded like 18 grand for the rec center person, and also I think it's important that we try to do something to give us some type of raise to those employees that are non-contract, that we talked about earlier, that are not lined up for one right now. You can do it in the form of a raise or a bonus. I think that
I thought this was a Crime Watch announcement. eh?
no, sorry. Talking about what you guys talked about. I'm in agreement with most of the things that you talked about. I think you honed in on the fact that we have some extra money that we set aside last year from the reserves, and that we can use that now, and as opposed to borrowing, because it does cost money to borrow, and it's not worth it on the 50 grand. It's not worth it. The cost to borrow on the 50 is probably not worth it. Probably wasteful. As far as the thing that Rox has brought up in the past, and I support 100%, is the reimbursement policy. I think that you don't realize the benefit that you can get out of it by saving money on spending money on taxes, and using the money that you're probably spending anyway and you don't even realize it, but with a reimbursement policy. The things that there seemed to be some confusion up there about this. it'd be an employee, well, you are employees. It'd be a reimbursement policy based on your expenses. You would submit your actual expenses, and that would could include what, I'm looking at Bob now, because he was talking about his car. When you travel to those types of meetings, there's a set mileage rate you can get reimbursed for, as an example. When you travel to the Florida League meetings, and you want to, the cost of those conferences, that you would get reimbursed for. And the way you could do is you could cap it, and then we'll have a little extra money from the savings that we don't pay in for payroll taxes. And you'll have some more money to spend because you won't be paying it into the government for withholding taxes and income taxes. So I think that you ought to give that a little more thought.
All right.
And the code. Code, definitely, I'm in favor of the additional money put in for the code officer. So it could be administrative, or could be, some type of compliance sweep, or however you feel is appropriate.
That was his public comment for next week, so he's done.
Well, you talked about code earlier, so. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chuck. Announcements?
Thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow, August 12th, the Public Art Advisory Board at 6 p.m. Friday, August 14th is we have a health and wellness seminar at 1 p.m. Saturday, August 15th, we have our Back to School Children's Safety Day and our first annual Kids Bike Race starting at 9 a.m. Monday, August 17th, it's Ecology Board at 6:30 p.m. Also on the same day, Planning and Zoning Board at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, August 18th will be our second budget workshop at 6:30 p.m. And that's it.
All
And
right,
the-
thank you.
The ribbon
Motion
cutting
to
for the
adjourn.
new Village Hall will be at 10 a.m. Monday, August 24th.
Maria,
All right, thank you, everyone.
can we get this electronic?
Check with Christian.
Okay. So I'd like to get a copy of it electronically.